Welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
Allow me to reintroduce myself.
With Mike McGuire.
Stand up, son. Let me take a good look at you.
This guy's a serious professional.
You know what I want to talk about?
Yeah.
Well, the professional wrestling.
Do I have your attention now?
Done shilling. I'm done shilling, okay?
Let's get this show on the road.
I love professional wrestling.
Here we are, officially at episode 100 of McGuire on Wrestling, part of the Celebrate Wrestling Podcast Network. It has been a journey so far, and like I've said before many times, we're still just getting started. To some podcasts and shows, they see 100 as a landmark. I wanted to commemorate it a little bit, so we have a very special guest joining us today, the leader of the Hurt Syndicate, and a guy I first interviewed almost 15 years ago. We've stayed in touch ever since. The one and only MVP from AEW going to be on the show today. And what a show it is. This is officially going to be part of our WrestleMania preview as well, going forward to next weekend, where, of course, the WWE takes over Las Vegas with WrestleMania 41. There's a bunch of indie shows happening. There's a bunch of conventions going on. It's going to be an incredible week if you're a wrestling fan. So much content out there and so much more still to come. So thank you for making this show part of your wrestling content consumption. We really do appreciate it, and I speak not just for myself, but for the entire team, and we're going to hear from some of them. If you're listening to the podcast version, highlights of our WrestleMania roundtable for picks, the full thing going to be listed on the feed later on this week, but if you're listening on the radio, you still got some great stuff coming up for you today. MVP, like I said, will be here. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer also going to give his WrestleMania picks, which is something you don't always easily get him to commit to. And if you're listening to the podcast version, you're going to get a bonus conversation with Mike Sempervive, who, like me, does this for the love of the game. We're going to talk about what keeps us going as wrestling fans and pseudo talk show hosts, journalists, whatever you want. I don't call myself a wrestling journalist. It's a talk show. We're here to have fun and talk about pro wrestling. You're here to be a part of that, and we love you for it. The only shilling I'm going to do this week, because they're finally available for pre-order, the return of t-shirts. Now, if you go to CelebrateWrestling.com and you go to the merch store, that's your business. You can do that, but I want to save you some money right now. So if you're listening to this show, go to the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. Join the page and go up top to the featured posts. In fact, right next to the featured post for this episode you're listening to right now is a featured post showing two t-shirts. One is the Celebrate Wrestling blue on blue shirt, which if you were listening last week has kind of a double meaning to that for me. And then the other one is for our friends Dimitri and Mitch up in Calgary. It is the GWO, the Greek World Order shirt. Being Greek, not necessary to wear this shirt and sport the colors, although I'll tell you, the more and more people I get to know, the more I'm convinced the Greeks are just everywhere. And these guys are fantastic. They were one of the first on board to really support what's going on here. They've put in a bunch of episodes as well. If you haven't listened to the alternate commentary table on the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed yet, and you like to laugh, you like to have a good time, that's the show for you. To be completely honest, they are completely nuts. They've been friends for life, and frankly, they're also the biggest liability on this network. I say that in jest, of course, but it is a really great show, and they are really great guys. So if you want to support the GWO or Celebrate Wrestling, of course, you can always donate at PayPal at CelebrateWrestling.com. But now, a chance for you to get something else for your donation, and that is one of these shirts. Limited time only available until the end of May. So May 31st, they are coming down, but save yourself some bucks. Head to the Facebook page. You'll see the special offer there. T-shirts are reduced, free stickers involved. It's going to be a ton of fun sending these out to those of you that listen and support the show. So we appreciate you there. Okay, enough jibber jabber. We got so much to talk about this week and so much to get into. Without any further ado, let's jump right into it. 5 of the biggest stories from the past 7 days. As per tradition, we call it the 5 count.
You want to hear the breaking news?
Well, we don't talk a lot about New Japan Pro Wrestling, but something pretty historic is going on right now. And for the last time, Hiroshi Tanahashi has wrestled in North America, at least on American soil. It happened during the Windy City Riot earlier this week. He took on AEW's Konosuke Takeshita, who would eventually go away with the win.
It is the destruction of the ace, the cover. And that's 3.
After the match, Tanahashi thanked the crowd and said not to worry about New Japan Pro Wrestling. As president, he planned to make things better than ever.
I will make New Japan number 1 is the one!
We found out when the WWE Hall of Fame is going to be airing and where if you're in the United States. Of course, it's going to be on Peacock, but if you are anywhere else, YouTube might be the best place to go. Now, they're also advertising X and TikTok as platforms that you could see some of the footage on, so I'm not sure if that's going to be live streamed or not. Keep in mind, the Hall of Fame is set to start at 1 a.m. Eastern Time Saturday morning. It's going to be in a different venue than WWE SmackDown that night, so they have a 2-hour window between those shows to move talent over and then have them show up for the Hall of Fame ceremony. And then don't forget, NXT Stand and Deliver starts early that morning, and of course, night 1 of WrestleMania to watch. So, if you want to watch all this, you might as well just glue yourself to the couch now and have delivery on standby. Another interesting note on the Hall of Fame, it was announced this week that Diamond Dallas Page will be the one to induct Lex Luger into the class. Now, there's a lot of hope and a lot of rumblings that Sting may be approached by WWE, but Tony Khan said they never reached out about it. Of course, Sting and Lex are longtime friends, but Sting is under an AEW contract still, and this is what happens when you have two wrestling companies that hate each other. We'll talk about a couple wrestling companies that seem to love each other. Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, presented by GCW, and WWE have teamed up for a massive show that takes place on the 17th. Bloodsport 13 will be taking place Thursday night in Vegas. Now, they've just announced a roster of guests of honor that'll be in attendance. Check this out. Tank Abbott, Don Fry, Dan Severn, Butterbean, and Mark Kerr among those who are going to be welcomed to the event. Plus, on the card itself, you have a ton of WWE talents. Karrion Kross, Shayna Baszler, Pete Dunne, Charlie Dempsey, and Natalya, just to name a few. What's also interesting is that by having Mark Kerr there, you have to almost think, maybe, just maybe, the guy who's going to be playing him in an upcoming movie, The Smashing Machine, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, would he show up? I don't know, but either way, it could be very, very interesting, this pre-WrestleMania Bloodsport. Some different reports coming about injuries to stars of both WWE and AEW. On the WWE side, it was apparently mistakenly reported that Kevin Owens had already undergone neck surgery. Now, there were some posts on social media featuring pictures of Owens with either a neck brace on or in a hospital gown. Those reports are said to be untrue at this time. However, it was also reported that Pac from AEW was spotted in Jacksonville on crutches after he apparently injured his ankle at Collision last weekend in his match against Swerve Strickland. Pac was reportedly seen on crutches leaving the TV taping. And pro wrestling continues to be white hot across Canada, including Toronto's Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, set to have their debut in Maple Leaf Gardens on May the 10th. I know it has a different name now, but let's call it the Gardens. Why not? Set to be featured on the show in a 20-man gauntlet match to crown the first ever MLP Canadian champion. Includes PCO, Bishop Dyer, the former Baron Corbin, Rhino, Raj Desi, Billy Gunn, QT Marshall, Sheldon Jean, El Phantasmo, Bhupinder Gujjar, Psycho Mike, Michael Allen, Richard Clark, and 8 more still to be named. Also, the Women's Championship Tournament wraps up with Giselle Shaw against Kylie Ray. Miyu Yamashita will take on Serena Deeb. Matt Cardona and Jonathan Gresham have also been announced to appear. You can find out more details on that show coming to Toronto at mlpwrestling.com. Well, before we get rolling, this is a pretty special episode for me, being the official episode 100, even though if you follow on the podcast feed, we've posted like hundreds of episodes and different content and things for you throughout the years here at Celebrate Wrestling. But for me, getting to 100 shows was kind of important. This is even more than 100 shows for me if you count doing the old show. And I mean, obviously, I've been doing radio for 900 years. So it's kind of a neat milestone to celebrate. At the same time, I didn't want to make too big of a deal about it until my friend Joe messaged me the other day. And Joe You keep track of things better than I do, apparently.
I did do some digging after you had mentioned that we were going to do something for the 100th show. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, Mike is not one to brag, but I have no shame for bragging for him. So, Mike, if you don't mind, I did go back into the annals of Celebrate Wrestling / McGuire on Wrestling. Just put together a really small factoid, nothing too embarrassing here, but like, for example. Okay?
I do, hold on, before you get going, I do kind of hate this, but you went to all the work, so what the hell?
Okay, and to be completely transparent, I don't care that you hate this. No, like, and here's the thing, like, I know you're very humble, right? And I mean that with all sincerity, but at the same time, given all the stuff, just having known you for the last few years, just given all the stuff you've gone through, knowing how hard you work, I thought you deserve a little bit of accolade. That's all I'm saying. So here we go, okay? Your first episode, it was April 23rd, 2023, so you are just shy of 2 years old with McGuire, or Celebrate Wrestling, McGuire on Wrestling.
Yeah.
The first thing you ever said on any show was, hey, thanks for being here and welcome to McGuire on Wrestling. And I bring this up because I've always just wanted to say that line. Some notable guests that you've had since the beginning: Tessa Blanchard, TJ Wilson, Nick Aldis, Shane Douglas. I forgot about Shane Douglas.
Right.
More recently, Keith Elliott Greenberg, and the big guest for show 100.
The fact that anybody takes this show seriously enough, and guys like Jericho and Brett obviously being such a huge part of so many shows, I'm humbled and flattered that they take me seriously enough to want to chat wrestling with me.
100%. So, just to give some shout out to the boys, the ACT debuts July 31st, 2023. So they are coming up to their second year. Squared Circle / Legends and Champions debuted January 30th, 2024.
Wow.
Now, some of the notable verbiage that have come from the shows: Garros.
Okay, but that was a throwback to you and me.
That was, but at the end of the day, it's still, you were still using it, so it's on this show. Right, damn it.
Okay.
Yebu, the GWO, chair shot. Daddy, and of course, play safe, drive safe. I'll be seeing ya.
Okay, to be fair, that's been my radio sign off basically my entire career, and the play safe, drive safe part I threw in for whatever reason. The Abyssinia was actually a tribute to one of my favorite comedy shows growing up, and that was MASH.
Nice.
And that was a Henry Blake line, and he would always throw it out as Abyssinia. And the episode where, spoiler alert, for a show that's like 60 years old now, but yeah, spoiler alert, when Henry Blake dies, they call that episode Abyssinia Henry. So,
you know what? I watched that show as a kid.
Yeah.
I love that show. I remember that episode, actually. That was like one of the saddest episodes ever.
Yeah. So when I first started saying Abyssinia, nobody got it right away. Right. And it's just transposed to Abyssinia because that's what it's supposed to be anyways.
Yeah.
That's where the Abyssinia came from.
But again, you've been saying it on the show, and I'm going to keep it there. And finally, some of the special shows that you've done. I only listed out Our Hero Leo Burke, which I thought was amazing, and the Holiday Hullabaloos, which I have a personal bias towards because that was where you got me to talk to Brett, which I still owe you for big time. But these are just some of the things that you've done on your show, which again I think is pretty amazing. Given how much the work this is, and the fact that you've gotten again the ACT and LAC kind of up and running. Just kudos to you, man. Congratulations on this.
Well, my belief has always been I just want to talk about wrestling and do it in an audio format. Yes, we do post some stuff on YouTube. It's funny, when YouTube first came along, I was one of the first guys in Canada, especially in radio, to use it as a thing. But I've really kind of tried to bring back the use your imagination of audio. And so the goal was to just tell those stories. If you're sitting in your car, especially if you're in a bigger market like you are, Joe, or maybe you do a lot of highway driving or something like that, if it's something that can kill your time and not just be, for lack of a better term, and I don't mean this as a disrespect to anybody that does it, not just be some fan ranting about what he likes and doesn't like and calling everything stupid every week. That's what the hope of this show was. That's the hope of what I started doing in wrestling. And to be able to tell stories and share experiences and things like that, that's all I ever really cared about. I've got a job. So it's a case of whatever comes in, I try and put back out. All you guys have gear coming. which I'm very happy and excited to be able to give you guys just as a thank you and nod. But that's all possible because of people to listen and support. And if you're hearing ads on the show, trust me, we're not making a ton of money off of those. I think the rollout is like in the tens of dollars a month.
Oof.
And I don't say this to be the nitpicky guy, but that was one of the things that I heard earlier on about why I wanted to do wrestling coverage, so I could get a big payday out of it. Dude,
no.
I will do this for free for the rest of my life and not care. But at the same time, if you want to support the show and throw a couple bucks at a t-shirts, I want to give you something in return. I want to give you something for your support and your acknowledgement and everything else. So we're still waiting to get the Joe Aguinaldo show up and going here for whatever you want it to be. But
no. What we have to get is the Mr. Big Stick sponsorship.
I know, the Maple Leaf sponsorship. Listen, you want to support the show? Everybody tweet at Maple Leaf Canada and tell them that they need to get Mr. Big Stick specifically to sponsor these shows. I would love nothing more than Celebrate Wrestling to be brought to you by Mr. Big Stick. Available now at your Canadian retail grocery stores.
That would be amazing.
Dude, even if it was just for a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if it's just for one show. Can you imagine next year's holiday hullabaloo being brought to you by Mr. Big Stick?
That would be massive milestone for the show.
We have given so much free press to this thing over the years. Google Mr. Big Stick if you don't know what we're talking about. There's even clips of Joe and I talking about this thing over the years. But oh god, that's the only thing Mitch and Dimitri, they like to yuck on. They're all about the money. I'm all about the Mr. Big Stick. No, dude, thank you for being you and also for just being a friend. I mean, we started out as being two guys that didn't know each other at all. You were doing a different podcast on the same network I was doing, and then you started to fill in as a co-host, and then we took over the Monday Night Raw reviews for a long...
Oh, stop. We didn't take over. You sucked me into that.
Well, okay. That's another story for another day. Bottom line, we watched a lot of damn Monday Night Raw together when it wasn't good.
We did, but we also did laugh a lot at R-Truth. We got to give him that.
Yeah, and I think that became our bonding experience. So if anything, another reason why R-Truth is all things good is that it made Joe and I become closer friends through the years here. But dude, you've been there for many a highway drive. You were one of the first people to reach out when my mom died, which was a defining moment for me. And there's some people that are sick and tired of hearing about it, and I understand that. But for me, it's been a defining moment of my life for the last few years here. So being able to carry on, and thanks to the support of people like you, man, and Mitch and Dimitri, so great. Andy actually reached out to me the day everything changed, and that's how I first met Andy. Right. And I think, honestly, he was hoping for some dirt. I didn't really give much, and nor will I ever, because, honestly, it's just not worth it. No. But we became friends, and then he started talking about, doing shows together. I said, hey, dude, I just got this feed. I can't pay you nothing, but I'll give you a platform. And he's changed his show over the years here. This Legends and Champions thing, I think, is some of his best work. It's great to have Stefan back on the air as well. Big time. Talk about a guy who's just as resilient and a big wrestling fan as well. And Mitch and Dimitri have become my Greek brothers. You know what I mean? Like we're all 1/10 Greek now because of them. And maybe more. It's funny, even on I was watching that WWE WrestleMania 9 special, and George, the video archivist, sure enough, he's a Greek guy, and he's the guy that saved the archive. I was like, we got to just mail that guy a GWO shirt gratis and be like, dude, thanks for keeping all the footage that we grow up loving and watching through the years here. But no, man, in all seriousness, and all the followers, all the ones that either came over from old show or have found it through other ways, there's people that are kind of wrestling podcast celebrities that follow this show. Our buddy Jake Allenard, Jake from the Windy City. I mean, how many years did you hear that guy on other shows throughout the years? Blaine, who, it was funny. I think we can go ahead and say it now. I almost worried about having Blaine on because he's very, very critical. And Blaine, we love you, dude. I love what you write and everything else. But I mean, it was kind of a running joke where it's like, does this guy like anything? And it turns out he does. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take credit for that that our positive approach to pro wrestling maybe helped him find a bit of love for that again as well. My buddy Vinny B up in Sherwood Park, Alberta. So he was a friend, well, still is a friend of a radio guy I knew up there, and he was the guy that actually threw John Cena's shirt back at him a few times.
Wow. Yeah, back in the ECW thing or whatever?
No. This is the Monday Night Raw in Edmonton.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So this was after the ECW thing.
Right.
But it got even bigger pops after because it was on Raw. It was like a huge deal, right? And it was a match against Del Rio, which, whatever. But, it was this crazy thing. And Vinny and I have stayed in contact for years. And, he even said on social, he's like, that I was responsible for helping him rediscover his love of Bret Hart because he was very anti-Bret for a long time. And, I'm not saying that to be like, hey, look what I did, but it's just neat to see some people just, lay down the arms a bit and, pardon the pun, but celebrate this thing we love called pro wrestling. So, dude, I couldn't have done this without you.
Yeah, one of these days too, we should probably do a Cena. We've seen a movie podcast.
Dear God, that's the Veer Mahan Emelina of Celebrate Wrestling. There's a couple episodes out there, but I think we gotta wait now until this Wile E. movie comes out now.
Coyote versus Acme, apparently.
Oh, thank you. My life has changed based on that information. But we will keep going. And Joe, it's always great to have you along for the ride, pal. Appreciate you.
Anytime, man.
All right, he's coming back for our WrestleMania predictions. Later on, we got as much of the roundtable as we could get from around the world. Feel free to leave your thoughts as well on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer, he's going to give some of his picks as well. And MVP, the real Mr. 305, the leader of the Hurt Syndicate, coming up.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
Legends and Champions is your weekly fix to go old school, looking at the classic world of professional wrestling. From Hulk Hogan to the Hitman Bret Hart to the Icon Sting to the total package Lex Luger. We have it all each and every week on Legends and Champions, part of the Celebrate Wrestling Network. And it's available on a Wednesday with me, Andy Evans. See you there.
It's time for the Wrestling Observer Insider with Dave Meltzer, McGuire on Wrestling.
Well, here we are, 100 official episodes in. And as always, we're going to catch up with Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer and WrestlingObserver.com. Dave, thanks for being here as always. And how are you doing?
Feels like this was a tough weekend between the Windy City show and UFC and Collision every week and SmackDown. And I'm not even caught up on all that. But
that Collision was crazy last night. Have you managed to watch the whole show yet? Or
I think I've seen everything except for the Takeshita match, which I heard was fantastic.
Well, speaking of Takeshita, you brought up the Windy City Riot. I watched the show because it was Tanahashi's last match in America. At least that's what they're saying. And obviously it's going to be a huge deal moving forward. Takeshita gets put over, gets the win. For those that don't understand the historical impact of Tanahashi, give kind of just a quick overview, if you can, of a guy that's meant so much, obviously, to New Japan and to pro wrestling over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I consider him one of the all-time greats. I mean, in some ways, I would call him like the Japanese version of Bret Hart in the sense that he really had this ability to do matches that would grip you and get you into it. Like, even when he was younger, he was a really good athletic wrestler. He was always good. But when they started doing the pay-per-views in the United States, and this was like the peak of the Tanahashi world title run, they would do one every month, and he would be in the main event every month. And no matter who he was against, he pulled a great match out of them, always. His stuff always looked smooth. His stories were really good. His facial expressions were fantastic. And he built the company. I mean, the New Japan, when Tanahashi first started getting pushed, it was not a thriving company. It was a company that was losing money, that was on the way down. The whole professional wrestling industry there was not doing well. And Tanahashi was the guy who really built it up to a certain level. And then Okada took it to an even bigger level. But people like to say Tanahashi saved New Japan. And, it's hard to say, but it's I wouldn't call it an incorrect statement. I think that it's a pretty, arguable statement. I mean, in the modern era, I think Okada would be the best of the Japanese wrestlers, but I think Tanahashi probably was more important than Okada in a period where they really needed him bad. And also the Okada being what he was because of his feud with Tanahashi. I mean, like later, you could talk about Omega and Ibushi and a lot of other guys, but the first couple of years of Okada's push, it was always Tanahashi Okada and all of their matches, and they were classics. I mean, I considered Tanahashi Okada to be the modern equivalent to Jack Briscoe and Dory Funk Jr., where they wrestled show after show after show, year after year. It was always great. Matches of the year and contenders every single time out. And by working with Tanahashi, Okada got so much better. So then, Okada ended up being, this great wrestler. I don't say he was green, but he was inexperienced at that level. And Tanahashi worked him through with these great matches, and Okada learned from that. I don't think you have Okada without Tanahashi, I guess is the best way to put it.
Using the comparison that you used there, would you say maybe that Tanahashi was the Brett to Okada's Austin?
Yes, I would say that. I think that's a very fair statement. Yeah.
That's just kind of the vibe I'm getting. And I agree 100%. I mean, that's when, oddly enough, that was about when I started to really get into New Japan a bit as well and started watching those matches more. And I agree 100%. Tanahashi, to me, maybe the most resilient and reliable, kind of a cornerstone of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad, because he really gave his body. You know what I mean? Like he should have stopped a lot of those moves that he did years younger because his knees were so bad. But he just kept doing it. He's a very giving guy, very as far as in the business, really worked hard to make other people. In the last few years, when he was no longer the top guy, I mean, he had the name value and everything. He could have, put a lot less people over. I mean, he may not have been world champion, but he could have put a lot less people over than he did. He got beat once by Chase Owens. It's like he was always going to do the right thing to get other people over. I thought that was a very admirable quality. And he had an ability that very few I've seen ever have to draw emotion out of the crowd. Like the last 2 years when his knees were shot, I mean, he couldn't even run the ropes well, but he would get great matches out of people. I mean, look at the Takeshita match. That was a great wrestling match. And it wasn't all Takeshita. A great part of that match was the emotion that Tanahashi drew out of the audience and his timing. Like when he did that small package, and it was funny when he was about to do the small pack, when he right before he did the small package, this is the time for the small package, and he did it. I just think his ring psychology was right up there with the best I've ever seen. I mean, and his timing, like of knowing when to do what, and the kick out of the Takeshita frog splash at 1 in the match on Friday. It was just like. I didn't see that one coming. I don't think anyone in the building saw that one coming. And it was such a dramatic moment. I mean, lots of guys do the kick out at 1. Everything he did in that match, his timing was so great as far as when to do it. I think the people in that building would have loved him winning, and it just wasn't his style. Honestly, I probably wanted him to win. It was a non-title match, so what's that? What's the problem? It's what everyone in the building wanted, but I don't think it would be what he wanted. I think he grew up in a different system where it's very clear that his role, especially now as company president, is I'm here to put the young guy over and build this business. It's not my time anymore.
They actually got me on that one because, like you, I was thinking, okay, non-title.
Non-title.
Everything says that Tana could go out, but I got that vibe. And honestly, this is the first time I've really sat down and watched any Japan show in a while, just because there's so much to watch in North America, and we all got lives. But I wanted to really pay attention to this match in particular. And yeah, like you, I was completely fooled. It makes sense he would leave looking at the lights because as the outgoing star and you're the president of the company, you want to put over what you got coming in. But still, I mean, I was completely fooled.
Look, it doesn't, and it wouldn't have hurt Takeshita at all. His mentality is different, and in Japan, the mentality is different. It's not, let's get the pop at the end. It's like we've got a long process, and the old guy usually puts over the young guy. I mean, I know we can come up with exceptions, like with Inoki in his last match. But most of the time when guys do, go out in Japan, they go out looking at the lights. I mean, Terry Funk told me the same thing. Although when Terry did his first retirement in Japan, he actually won that match. And should have. I think that match would have been a real letdown had he lost. There's no perfect answer. I would have liked to have seen him win. It's not his last match. I mean, I really would like to see him win the IWGP title one last time on the way out. Career Achievement Award. it's just something that people would love. You know what I mean? And I think that when he just wrestled Goto, and they had a good match doing that, I think that when they did that match, it wasn't the right time to do it. I think that maybe closer to the retirement, he even brought up the idea of an IWGP title match on January 4th at the Tokyo Dome. And maybe he wins that and comes back for a month but I don't know that he wants to lie about the retirement. And I don't think that him winning the title and then vacating it for Japan is the right thing to do. But the idea of maybe winning that title and then doing a thing where as soon as I lose it, I retire and then, maybe retire the next month. I think that that's probably, it'd just be a memorable finish and one last championship reign for him.
You're listening to McGuire on Wrestling on the radio and online. We're talking to the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer about Hiroshi Tanahashi and, of course, the end of a career that's coming next year. However, he did have his last American match here. One last thing I wanted to focus on this match here, and I didn't expect us to actually talk about it this long, but I'm kind of glad we are. If folks haven't seen the match, highly recommend getting the Windy City Riot show on New Japan World and watching it, because at the end of it, tell me if you think this was character or if you think this was legit. I got a real Shawn and Flair vibe from Takeshita when he went for that final blow, where he's standing in the corner. Like, the emotion just seemed, I know they were playing a pretty heated rivalry between the two, but Takeshita almost seemed emotional going into that last sequence.
He grew up watching the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think it's the same thing. And then, they built a storyline over the match that they had like 11 years ago, which is really amazing to build a storyline over a match 11 years ago when Takeshita was just a skinny, probably 18-year-old.
Right.
And he had the opportunity to have a match with Tanahashi, who was, far superior and beat him. And Tanahashi, treated him like he was a young boy. And for Takeshita, this was portrayed as his coming of age and beating the guy who beat him when he was a teenager, and a passing of the torch, so to speak, or a credibility thing for Takeshita getting, that win over Tanahashi. There was a story to that. It's funny because there was, but the story, I don't think most people in the building, knew that story. Some did, but I think most didn't. But it was interesting to see in Chicago, they knew who Tanahashi was. He was something outside of Japan too, to the people who followed it, not in the mainstream, but a lot of people. To me, yeah, I definitely felt that in the last couple of years, like when Tanahashi was going out, it's like, you feel it because he was the guy who I would say that he rekindled my interest in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I was watching it, but it was just there. And then when Tanahashi had that title reign, I got really interested in it because month after month, he had the best matches in the world, And then when he was working with Okada, they had some of the best matches of all time.
Well, there you go. A little bit of Japanese wrestling for you today on the show. Stick around. We're going to be back with Dave Meltzer and talk all about the big show this weekend and all the shows around at WrestleMania. A preview on the way.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
CKXU-FM 88.3 in Lethbridge is Southern Alberta's true alternative radio station.
The cream of the crop! Nobody does it better.
Proudly carrying McGuire on Wrestling every week.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something different to listen to,
This is gonna be a slobber knocker!
check out our NCRA award-winning lineup of programs or stream us anytime at ckxu.com.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
We're back with Dave Meltzer, MVP, still to join us here on the show today from AEW and the Hurt Syndicate. A really, really great conversation with him on the way for you. But right now, we're talking to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer and WrestlingObserver.com. Dave, we just talked all about Tanahashi and his career. If you missed it on the radio, head to CelebrateWrestling.com or get McGuire on Wrestling or Celebrate Wrestling, wherever you get your podcasts, to hear a great look at some of a legendary career there. But let's move forward to the Showcase of the Immortals, the granddaddy of them all, the big show this weekend here. A lot of people are saying a little underwhelming build to it. It seems a little clunky going in. But, of course, WrestleMania 41 from Las Vegas this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and about 1 billion shows before and after that show as well. WWE's calendar alone seems to be choking out a lot of the smaller shows around. But then again, you go to that like GCW show on the Thursday, And they've got, what, 5 or 6 WWE stars on there. Like, the WWE's
the blood sport,
Vegas.
Yeah. For whatever reason, I don't know. It's obviously they have someone there has a certain respect for Josh Barnett. And a lot of the talent there likes to do that, because it's kind of like when you're in WWE, you're doing WWE wrestling, and that's fine. But a lot of them who have somewhat legitimate backgrounds in some sports, this is the kind of wrestling that I think many of them like to do. I think there's a recognition that from a marketability standpoint, it is not a high, you can't do this style in WWE, but there is an audience that likes it. And I think that, once a year, I think it's pretty cool for those guys to kind of get out of their comfort zone and, do that different style, which was, an offshoot of the, it's funny because Josh Barnett was a huge fan of the UWF in the 90s, before he ever became a fighter. And that's the style that this is kind of comes from, is that UWF pro wrestling style from Japan.
Well, MVP actually talks about his Bloodsport experience coming up as well. So if you're looking forward to talking more about that, but let's get to the actual WrestleMania weekend here. It's unreal to me that on Friday night, it'll be SmackDown. And then 2 hours later, it's going to be the Hall of Fame. So 1 a.m. Eastern time start on Saturday morning for the Hall of Fame. They can't be sending the whole roster there. They can't.
Yeah, that's what. Well, I think they probably will, but I think that's the reason that they're only doing 5 inductees. I think that they just felt that it would wear everyone out. Especially if people are watching on the East Coast. I don't think they wanted this thing to be going on at 3:30 a.m. So that's why I think Kamala and them were put in this legacy thing, so they don't have to do a ceremony. And obviously Paul Levesque, Triple H is the key with Shawn. They're the main event. It's the, all-star cast of inductors. They got Undertaker from Michelle McCool, which makes sense. And they got, Punk with the Bret and Austin match, which they have a lot of star power there with Bret and Austin added, and seeing each other for the first time publicly in a long, long time. And that's an all-time classic match. I mean, I think a lot of people would rank it the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. And I think I probably would too.
Yeah. We talked about it last week, and you said those exact words. So I know it's one of Brett's favorite matches. I know it's Austin's favorite match.
It's Austin's favorite match, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what a spectacle. And Punk is the perfect guy to put this in. Like, it's really going to be a real story, I think, here. Let's go through the actual card, though, once these guys eventually get some sleep here, because Punk is main eventing that Saturday night here. He's in the final match here of WrestleMania Saturday. Let's start off, though, with the presumed order. And again, this is all we don't know for sure.
The order that I have in the Observer is probably the order. It was the order as of Thursday. And when they went on TV and they announced the show, the order could change. Last year, at the same time, I did get a card in an order. And while matches were tweaked and changed slightly, the order actually was identical. So it's a good chance that's the order. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start off then saying the world title match between Gunther and Jey Uso kicks things off here. Probably the best play you can make.
Yeah, you open it up.
Putting it last.
You open it up when you give the people a world title change in the first match at WrestleMania. I think that's a cool open, yeah.
Do we get the title change, you think? Is Jey really there?
I think. The way the story's gone, I think you almost have to. Gunther's held it long enough. They can do whatever they want. But on that one, I'd be really expecting a title change, yeah.
So, women's match, Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair. Now, this isn't the match you have second on your list, but this is kind of what came down in the rotation on TV here. So, where do you think we go? Charlotte Flair becoming another champion, or does Tiffy Time keep it?
That's a tough one. And the reason I say that is there's two different forces at work. Number one is they want to get Charlotte Flair 18 championships. The number two is that the right thing to do at this point in time is for Stratton to win. So you can go either way with that one.
There's been talk of some heat on Flair after that whole promo thing. Is that legit? I don't like to dive into rumors.
There's heat on both of them, but whatever the outcome is the planned outcome. I don't think there's heat in the sense of, now we're not going to give you the title. But, there were things that they didn't like about both of them. But as far as the match itself, whatever it was going to be, I'm of the impression it's still going to be.
Another match on the list for WrestleMania Saturday here, the U.S. Championship, Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight. They got to keep Fatu undefeated, right?
I would definitely have Fatu win the championship, yeah.
They're starting to bring up the actual numbers now, so it makes sense to just keep that number growing, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I think this is going to be a fun match. The storyline's been a little but it's going to be a fun match. El Grande Americano versus Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, I mean, I think that El Grande Americano should probably win, to keep the feud going. And I think the idea would be to build to a mask match that he loses. And I think it should be a hell of a match. Chad Gable's a great wrestler, and Rey's is an all-time great. So, yeah, I think and they've got the thing to set up. The foreign object headbutt is, I think, what they're trying to get over right now.
It's too bad they started this so close to WrestleMania, because this mask versus mask match at Mania would have been perfect. But
yeah, it would be rushing it to do it. I actually thought that they were going to do it that way, but realistically, it's way too early to do it that way.
We got SummerSlam.
SummerSlam would be the time. Yeah.
All right, the tag titles on Raw's side been a little quiet, I suppose. I mean, both tag titles always struggle in WWE, but the War Raiders defending against the New Day.
I think it's time for the New Day to win as heels, get some steam on them.
Well, they're the only tag team left that could really keep going with a streak. I mean, Usos broke the record, so I guess New Day could go back to taking that title.
Mm-hmm.
Jade Cargill versus Naomi. Does this last long? And if so, who do you think takes it?
I think Cargill wins, and I would keep it short. Yeah.
Okay. And then our triple threat. Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns versus CM Punk with Paul Heyman in Punk's corner.
I mean, the whole story is where does Heyman go? And they even threw the tease, maybe it's even going to be Rollins. So, I mean, the thing with that match is they're going to have a great match. But at the same time, it's almost like when you're watching the match, that nothing can happen and none of the near falls mean anything until Heyman makes his choice, because you have to have that.
Right.
You could go, here's what I would say. The person who's going to challenge for the world title out of those three should be the one who wins. And I think that it should be Punk. Right. I mean, you could absolutely go with Reigns and then go with Reigns and Cena, or Cody. But I think Punk is a little stronger for right now, and he's probably going to work more dates. So my pick would be Punk. You could make the argument that Rollins winning will get Rollins over more, whereas Punk and Reigns don't need to be over more. They're as over as they're going to be. So you can make that argument that Rollins is right on the cusp right now of being that level character, because his work, honestly, I think that his work has been the best of anyone in talking wise in WWE in this Mania build. So maybe you go with him as the surprise, because I think a lot of people expect Reigns because he's the big star.
Right.
And I think a lot of people expect Punk because, Punk going for the title is a program they haven't done, and it's right now the right time to do it. So, but
it would solidify him as a heel. It would solidify him for sure with if Heyman turns on both of them and sides with Rollins.
You could go Punk as a heel, and he'd be a great heel. Yeah. I know a lot of people would cheer him, but that's fine.
I mean,
too.
Rollins is a heel.
That either of them, any of them. I think Reigns going back to heel, I think, would be a bad mistake too soon.
Yeah.
Punk going heel. I mean, I could go with Punk as a heel, but Punk can be a baby. Look, Cena could be champion as a heel, and Punk, and Heyman stays babyface with Punk, and Punk chases Cena. You can absolutely do that scenario.
Oh, interesting. I never thought about Heyman to Cena.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well, we'll get to that in a second here, because I do have thoughts on that match as well. We're talking to Dave Meltzer. This is McGuire on Wrestling, episode 100, your WrestleMania preview as well. And again, you can catch the entire episode with some extras on the podcast version through CelebrateWrestling.com. Okay, Sunday, let's start off here going through the matches. And then, again, this is not the order we know for sure, but this is what I have in front of me right now. Logan Paul and AJ Styles.
I think Logan Paul wins. AJ Styles is on his way out, and Logan Paul is on his way up. So I think he wins. They'll probably have a really good match.
Yeah, and I'm guessing some sort of chicanery as well.
Of course.
Bring in his crew, somebody dressed in a Prime bottle or some other guy that we don't know from wrestling, but everybody knows from YouTube.
Yep, exactly.
The Intercontinental Championship as a four-way. Braun Breaker, Penta, Dominic Mysterio, and Finn Balor.
There's a lot of ways you can go on this. I think that a key is you can get it off Breaker without beating him, which I think that they would like. I would go with Dominic, and then you have that thing where Finn is jealous because even though they're teammates and he's supposed to be happy, he's not because he wanted that belt and Dominic didn't get it. You can always go and play, like the elevation of Penta, make him into a big player. You can always go with Penta. I wouldn't go with I think that you can do stuff with Breaker away from that right now. I wouldn't go with Finn unless Finn screws Dominic to win it, because then you still have that tension there. But I think that the dynamic I like more is Dominic having it and Finn being jealous, and keeping that Judgment Day story going. And plus, like Dominic, it's like he's been a punching bag for so long, but he's really over.
Yeah.
And so I think that him as that champion, he can be that champion where people are pissed and don't believe he's at that level. So therefore, these stars are going to beat him, and then he just kind of escapes with the belt for a while. So I kind of like that. Like
he had some good steam when he was North American champion there for a bit.
Yeah, in NXT. Yeah, but they used it. Yeah, I mean, I would pick Dominic, but there's no wrong. You know what I mean? I mean, I think Finn just doesn't feel right to me. Penta, I totally can get. And Breaker, if their idea is to like have him do this giant record-setting reign, then you don't have to change the course, and you can go with him. But I think with the four-way, the best thing about the four-ways is that Breaker doesn't have to lose the title.
We have 7 matches announced for Saturday, only 6 confirmed for Sunday right now, but I want to propose this as a hypothetical. Randy Orton versus Solo Sikoa.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm going to watch the TV. I don't like the idea of Aldis in that match. A lot of people think
I can tell you that's not happening. I'm not going to say how I know, but I can tell you that's not happening.
Okay, well, I wouldn't want to do that then.
So with Solo then, between him and Randy, what do you think?
I would want to keep Randy strong for a feud with Cody. Even if Cody loses to Cena, then there's no point in doing the feud. But at some point, Cody probably is going to get it back. And Cody and Randy's a money match with their history and everything. And they've already teased it. So it doesn't have to be, that we can, and when we talk about that could be next year's Mania, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Women's Championship 3-way, Io Sky defending against Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair.
You can go with any of the three. There's no, Io's the best wrestler of the three. Rhea's the most over. I think that the idea when I watch everything is it's probably Bianca just because it's her turn. She's been, a star for a long time. Then she was in the tag. Rhea had a big long run as champion already. So yeah, I kind of predict Bianca, but it doesn't matter who wins. It really doesn't. They're fine either. They're fine with any of them.
3 essential baby faces in that one. Do you see anybody turn heel?
I don't know. I'd be disappointed if they, had Bianca go heel right now. You could do that. I mean, Rhea can't go heel, and Io, was a heel for so long and I think that people really are starting to really like her.
Yeah.
So if someone's going to go heel, Bianca is the one. I will say that.
Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre in a Sin City street fight. Do we go crazy with this one, or?
Yeah. I think it's going to be.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be insane. I think it'll be insane. Yeah, those two at WrestleMania. I think Drew should win. Drew's the one who can really go with Roman Reigns. He's been talking about Roman Reigns, been talking about Cody Rhodes. When Drew was put on that brand, it was for Cody Rhodes. I mean, that was the reason that they wanted him there. I think Drew goes over, but
Priest is from the streets, Dave. Priest is from the streets.
Priest can win. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, Drew's a great talker, and he can pull that off if he has to lose. And if you want Priest to be elevated, he could win. But I think this is the one that Drew wins.
Women's tag titles, Bayley and Lyra Valkyria went wire to wire, to quote Joe Tessitore, with the gauntlet match. I've rarely seen that in a gauntlet match. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was actually one of the better gauntlet matches I've watched. But they're taking on Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, the Judgment Day.
I would go with Morgan and Rodriguez. I think Bayley and Bayley maybe goes heel.
Interesting. Yeah. I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, and last on the list, but definitely the most important one, the WWE Championship, Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. I want to hear your thoughts, and then I want to give you mine.
My thought is that John Cena should win. It's time. Get the historical thing out of the way. But Cody should be the one who gets it back. I think that Cody as the long-term champion is still the way to go. Business is too good, and he's the most important guy to the business right now. But yeah, I would have Cena win.
I want to say that I'm probably completely wrong in this prediction. But Dave, I want to throw it out there anyways. What is the Bret Austin match most famous for having happened during it?
Double turn?
That's what I'm thinking.
I wouldn't do a Cody turn.
No?
I wouldn't. No. They haven't had a baby face like that. I mean, granted, look, you do have Roman Reigns and Punk and people like that. You can do anything. What, Cody turning goes with Dwayne? Dwayne shows up?
I don't know if it's Dwayne. I don't know if Cody does it on his own. I don't know if there's another outside force. And again, this is probably 100% wrong. But it just crossed my mind the other day. I was like,
you could do it, but I mean, Cena just turned. To turn him back babyface this soon's too early to me.
I guess.
Yeah. And I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't turn Cody right now. There may come a day, but the day when that happens is the day, to me, like the day is when you can feel that the crowd is turning on Cody, not forcing it on him early. And right now, I think that is absolutely not the day. And there may never be the day, but I think now is absolutely not the time.
I'm not cheering for it. I'm just saying it could be a thing. But again, you're probably right in that.
They can do any. You can do any. I mean, their business is what it is. It's you can do anything they want at any time they want, and their business will be fine. I will say, having said that, I brought that up to someone in WWE. I would say in January, and I go, the one thing for your business is you can do anything. You can turn Cody, and the person, it's a pretty high ranked person, said to me, he goes, the one thing we can't do is turn Cody. That would be slapping our fans in the face. So that was Janualry, of course.
We got too many $300 replica robes to sell,
right? And then the other thing too is that it was not Paul Levesque who told me, although it was someone close to him, but it was not him. And given that, it's Paul Levesque's decision. Unless Dwayne comes in and it becomes Dwayne's decision, because whatever Dwayne wants, I don't say he always gets, but there's always something going on with Dwayne. Got his little Rubik's Cube picture. Did you see that?
Oh yeah, with the New Japan shirt on, people were losing their mind.
It's just like his little Rubik's Cube thing is like, I'm thinking at a level that you're not. And it's like, I'm sure you are, I don't know what it is. I mean, I did not envision a WrestleMania buildup without him doing any promos after March 1st in any way, shape, or form. So whatever he's doing, again, it's like, nobody knows but him and two or three other people probably. He's not advertised for either show. And you go like, why would you not advertise him? But I just believe he's showing up Sunday. Wrestling means.
Oh, he'll be there. He'll be there one way or another.
I know he's going to. I know.
Yeah.
I think they want you to think. Obviously, they want you to think that he's forgotten. But
he's forgotten. Oh yeah, WrestleMania's coming. Oopsie doopsie.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. We only got a couple minutes left here. Tell us what's going on in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer.
Well, I got a big preview of WrestleMania, including, like how the tickets are moving and ticket demands and all that. Got a big rundown of the AEW Dynasty show, the New Japan Sakura Genesis show, Arena Mexico. God, what a hotbed Arena Mexico's turning into. It's like the best it's been in forever.
It all comes in cycles, right?
It all comes in cycles, and right now they're in a big cycle, yeah. And they have a lot of big shows coming up there. AEW, different talks about different business things that they're involved in, and how the UFC thing, I'll be writing about in this issue, how the UFC rights can affect, not so much WWE, but they can affect AEW a lot if WBD gets UFC, which they want, but a lot of people want UFC. And that would be 2026. But that's what everyone's looking for. And, right now is 2026, which would be the WWE pay-per-view rights, at least in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And, because in Canada, it's going to be with Netflix and it's going to stay. But in the United States, and then the UFC rights, which are right now with ESPN and Netflix, WBD, ESPN, NBC, I think they're all in the market for this one. And it's a big one.
There's lots to go through every week, Dave. I know you're going to be busy next WrestleMania weekend, so we'll try and catch up sometime after that. But in the meantime, as always, appreciate you being here. Thank you, sir.
Have a great week.
Still to come on the show, we're going to check in with Mike Sempervive from the Wrestling News, as well as the Celebrate Wrestling panel giving our full WrestleMania picks. But up next, He is the leader of the Hurt Syndicate. He remains one of the most relevant pro wrestlers in North America today, even working both as a wrestler and, most notably these days, as a manager in All Elite Wrestling. An old friend. MVP is here for McGuire on Wrestling, episode 100, and he is next.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
The alternate commentary table, ACT, brought to you by the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. Listen, it's Mitch, it's Dimitri. We got this little pod thing that we do every single week where we talk about the week in wrestling and the way in which we do it from the other side of the railing. Right, Mitch?
I like that.
We're coming at it because we love it. We hate it. The alternate commentary table, ACT. Download it anywhere where you're getting your podcasts.
Shasha.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Oh, they hurt people.
Somebody mark the guy. Right. Hey, yo, we hurt people.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I've been waiting to have this guy on for some time now, and I thought, you know what? Episode 100 probably makes the most sense to have someone who not only I admire as a wrestler, I appreciate from a fan's perspective, but I've got to know a little bit of your life over the years here, and now seeing what you're doing and still working hard. Welcome to the show, MVP.
It's good to be back with you, Mike. It's been a long time since you and I have shared this kind of a format. And not even this, but I mean, just, to be on the air together in any capacity, right?
I think I sent you that picture. What did it say? Like, was it 12 or 13, maybe even 14 years ago now? Jeez, that's...
Yeah, it's been a lot of grays into the picture since.
Yeah, I started collecting some too. I saw you were having fun with them, so I was like, I'll get some. Why not? But
I invest in a lot of Just for Men. They need to give me a sponsorship or something. Jeez.
Yeah.
And now I use the brush in. So here's a real cool story. Tommy Dreamer taught me a long time ago when I first started to get the little grays. He used to take women's waterproof mascara to just touch up the grays. And it worked perfectly. Instead of having to dye everything and it's jet black and it looks stupid, And then Just for Men, the hair color company, took that idea and now they sell basically mascara.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they've changed it up, but it's basically the same thing that Tommy Dreamer showed me with Maybelline or L'Oreal or whatever, but Just for Men. And I use a lot of that. So this stuff is white. I'm past salt and pepper. I'm just salt now.
It's funny you say that because you actually inspired me with that when I started doing commentary, and I was like, I got to figure out what it is MVP's using to get the beard like kind of looking natural here. So I was like, the day in stuff, I was like, all right, I'll do it. And I can't believe here we are, our first conversation after how many years, and we're talking about our facial makeup tips here. So that's good.
Embracing the longevity, shall we say.
It's show business. It's show business. It's all show business.
Yeah, and I'm still here.
Dude, still here. We'll get into the business side of things in a little bit here, but I mean, you're still active way beyond what we see on AEW TV. In fact, we've been trying to line up this conversation for a month now, I think, and so it finally happened. But not only do we see you on TV, but dude, you're still working matches. Like you're flying all over the place.
Yeah, I'm taking indie shots and appearances, and I've done a couple seminars. I'm enjoying it, and I want to continue to enjoy it while I still can, because I realize I'm at the end of my rope career-wise. Let's be honest, I'm 51, but I'm not 51 like most people are 51. Like I can still bench press 225, 22, 23 times, and I still do jujitsu, and I still got gas in the tank. I can still go. So I'm a fit, healthy 51. And you look at Shelton's 49, Bobby's 48, and these guys, men half their age, wish they looked as good. So it's just a matter of staying fit, taking care of yourself, and continuing to do what you love. And while I still am healthy and fit, I want to continue to, work some more independent matches here and there. I plan on working some more matches on AEW because I'm not retired yet. And I do plan to, at some point, have my official last retirement match and, hopefully put some young gun over on my way out the door and then help try to make somebody. And then after that, I might do my cash grab independent retirement tour. But when I'm done, I'm done. I mean, I'll still be willing to work in the business, as a manager or maybe, doing commentary or in some other capacity. But when I'm done with the boots in the ring, which is going to be in another year or two, when I'm done, I'm done.
It's funny you mentioned that because I remember when you left WWE and the first thing you announced was you showed up at Bloodsport. And you told Josh Barnett, you're like, I'm coming. I want to do this, and I'm not going back. And I remember watching that match, and it was that Bloodsport style. It was the very, very physical, very intense. And even though maybe it didn't go your way in the decision, it still came down to, this guy still wants to go. And then after seeing you on social media, like even just this past couple of weeks here, like you've been, running matches everywhere and staying up to a level I feel that you must feel comfortable with. You must feel like, okay, you know what? This is still good enough to go. Because we've heard about people who decide, you know what, I want to wrestle, but I don't want to because I don't think I can keep up to what people would expect. You feel like you're still
That's
doing
the
that?
expiration date. For way too long through the years. Sadly, I've seen a lot of guys, stay beyond the expiration date where they physically are unable to do it in the ring anymore at the level that not even that people expect, but at an acceptable level. And, and in some cases it's really sad because, you got some of the guys that some legends that they can't do anything else, that they don't have any other job or any other means of making money. They don't know anything else. And that's kind of sad. And then there are some guys that, are just holding on because they still love it. They can't do it like they used to, but man, it's hard to let go, And in my case, I can still do it at a level that I feel is acceptable. I can't go like 07 MVP, or New Japan MVP, but I can still give you a good 10 to 15 minute entertaining match. And I know what I'm doing, and I'm a veteran, so I know when to slow down the pace and when to pick up the pace. I'm not going to give you a 25-minute main event headliner match with one of these guys like Ricochet or Osprey or something like that. But I still feel that as I can, I will continue for another couple of years to have matches. And when the time, me and Samoa Joe were just joking about it the other day. So I think Shelton Benjamin made a comment about using the ring ropes to get back up. And Joe said, hey, man, when it comes to the point that I got to grab the rope to help me get up, then, we're done at that point. It's over. I need to use the ropes to get up.
Man, I'm working with some of the indie feds down here in Southern Alberta, and I got to use the ropes to get up, but that's a different story for a different time. I was thinking back to when we last saw each other, and that was in Regina, Saskatchewan, of all places. And
Regina rhymes with
angina, a very serious heart condition. But but you were there, and I'm sure you remember this match. You had a match against a young guy named Alexander Prime. And I remember when you guys sat down to talk, and this is something that I always remembered, and I see this a lot now with other veterans that come in to work with younger talent. The first thing you asked him was, what was the 3 best things you do? Like, what are the 3 things you do better than anything else? Is that something you still kind of stick to when it comes to working with new talent and trying to help them maybe find their own way rather than trying to get the 900 spots in a match?
Yeah, that's usually, especially if it's a young guy that I've never worked with before. Like, it's very flattering that a lot of these young guys are familiar with me from television. And they've seen me on pay-per-views. Maybe they've watched some of my stuff in Japan, and they know what I'm capable of. So they want to do that with me. Like, nah, kid, I don't even know you, man. So we'll have a good match, but it's not that kind of party, you know. Now, you know, if it's a guy that I know that I've worked with, or even if it's a young guy who I'm familiar with, all right, then I'm a little bit more willing to go out there. But generally speaking, like, let's be real. I've reached the point of my career where now I'm nostalgia. So, you know, more than anything, people want to see, you know, a ball and elbow, a drive-by kick, you know, a little MVP cockiness, and they're happy. So I try to get, you know, a young guy, and I say, all right, man, look, we're not going to, you know, I'm not going to go out here and do these, you know, 3-minute, you know, choreographed Jason Statham spots with you. I'm not doing that. I've never been that way anyhow.
Yeah.
But, you know, for this crowd, you know, we got a few hundred people in the house. You know, what are the 3 things that you do best? What are your 3 best things that you want to get in? What are your signature things? And we'll get them into the story of the match. And the number of times that I've had young guys afterwards come back to me and go, man, I didn't know it could be that easy. You know, because they feel like you got to do all of this stuff and they don't understand it. All right, well, when you're younger and you're trying to make a name for yourself, well, yeah, you got to do some extra stuff to get the crowd, you know, to gain some fans. But I'm over. I was on TV. They're happy to see me. Just be a heel and beat me up. That's where your heat's going to come from. We don't have to do a whole bunch of complex stuff, but we'll get some of your stuff in so you can, you know, be true to you and your signature stuff, and we'll make it look good. But we don't need to do a whole bunch of unnecessary stuff, because at the end, I mean, really, they want to see me do a ball and elbow, and they want to see me do a comeback. And, you know, if it's a guy that I'm working with and I'm going to put him over to elevate him, then, you know, we'll come up with a really cool finish where, you know, they'll be cheering me and they'll be booing him and they're mad, you know. And I think a lot of guys nowadays, especially the younger talent, they've forgotten the importance of storytelling. The match isn't about the moves, it's about the story. And one of the biggest lessons that I learned from The Undertaker, he said, a match is a story. The moves are the illustrations. And if you understand that, if you open up a comic book and it's just bing, bam, boom, explosions, punches, it doesn't make any sense. But when you put those panels in the right order, and then you get the fight scenes, now you're drawn in, you're invested, you're like, okay. So that's what I try to teach these young guys now. Like, yeah, do your cool shit, but do it within the context of a story. And sometimes don't do things just because you can, because it might not be called for in the situation. Do it, because it's not what you do, it's when you do it. And we all remember as wrestling fans those moments where, where your heart goes up, where Kurt Angle does the moonsault off the top of the cage, or, when Austin passes out rather than taps out. There are specific moments that we remember because they're part of a story. And that's what I try to make them understand. Let's get those 3 things in the context of our story, so everything's not convoluted and people walk away going, wow, that was great.
Talking about that, I mean, it would be remiss if I didn't obviously talk about where you work now. And there's matches of every type there. It's funny, we just covered the AEW Dynasty pay-per-view, and there's matches of all kinds, right? And some are very much simple basics. Some are very much, we're going to throw everything but the kitchen sink at you. Do you feel that the audience is able to absorb all these different types in one night, or do you think that sometimes maybe we got to simplify, or maybe sometimes we need to amp things up more?
No, wrestling has always been a buffet. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. You got some ha-ha. This guy's a killer. This guy's funny. This guy's a technical wrestler. This guy's a brawler. This guy's a martial artist. So there's a little bit for everybody. And, I think that for AEW, for example, a huge chunk of that audience, they love just, really athletic, spot-based matches. They like that. That's what they want. And Tony Khan gives that to them. But there are also other styles on the card. When the Hurt Syndicate comes out, we're not doing spot fest. We're going to toss people around and beat people up, and it looks violent and it looks mean. I think that the fan base is being offered a few different dishes. And I think that even if you don't necessarily like this dish, like a buffet, take a spoon of it, have a little bit, and if you don't like it, don't put any more on your plate. But there's something for everybody for sure. And, I've been talking to some of the guys, just, they'll come and ask me my opinion. And like this past pay-per-view, I just had a conversation with two young guys. And I told them, I said, I think in your go-home sequence, you had one false finish too many. And it was funny because they both said, yeah, I felt that, man. I felt it. Yeah. I said, okay, well, you have to develop now that instinct when you can just feel that the crowd is at their peak. And sometimes, regardless of what else you had called, it's time to go home. Like, they're at their peak. Now's the time. Let's go. And you also have to have the courage to trust your instinct. And because especially when you have a long sequence of false finishes before the finish, you start to hear the diminishing returns where it's, like, oh, that's not what you want. The biggest pop should be the last one. And now you realize, oh, you did one too many. So in that regard, I'm seeing growth from some of these guys that are learning. Yeah, go out there and have the best match you can have, but be smart about it. You don't have to throw the kitchen sink out there tonight because you know what? Tonight the kitchen sink doesn't fit. So leave it out, And they're learning.
That's a tip I've gotten even doing commentary, was that your most energy should be when that finish hits. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can be impressed and blown away and everything else, but you got to put the most energy in the finish, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whatever. That's where you need to leave, leave your energy on the table. So I get that.
Jerry Lynn is one of the coaches, and I worked him on the Indies many, many years ago when I was coming up, and shortly before I got signed, as a matter of fact. And he told me that back then, too many of the young talent are trying to get the crowd to pop on a move as opposed to getting the crowd to pop on a match. So if you do your spinning reverse scorpion, death plant, back dive, whatever, and that's the biggest pop you get, and on the 1, 2, 3, you get, polite applause, you did it wrong.
Right.
On the 3, that should be the biggest reaction of the match. Yay, our guy won, or boo, our guy lost. That should be the biggest reaction of the match.
If you're just tuning in on the radio, that is MVP from AEW, big time friend of the show here, I'll say, but the guy I've gotten to know is pretty cool as well. We've talked a bit about wrestling. I think that a lot of what you said there might resonate with young wrestlers. You're not the first person to say this, I know, to a lot of younger wrestlers out there, but I think that it's probably, like you said earlier, though, a lot of guys just want to get noticed. They want to be known for something, and sure. A lot of guys and girls will get noticed for throwing in a bunch of moves like that. When do you think is the right time to start worrying, or not worrying so much, but focusing on your character as a wrestler? Like, what level of comfort should a wrestler have before they start really worrying about a persona?
I think as soon as you get into the ring and you start learning how to wrestle, you need to start thinking about the character that's going to present that wrestling. Because again, I tell guys all the time, like, you can do some amazing, impressive physical things that the crowd's going to like. But if you look at all the greatest money makers in the history of our business, they all had a personality. They all had charisma. They could talk. Sure, there's an outlier for everything. You have anomalies. But generally speaking, the guys that made the most money in our industry did the least amount of spots. They could talk really, really good, and they didn't do a lot of stuff. I mean, if you look at John Cena, look at Randy Orton, look at Roman Reigns, look at, Austin, The Rock. These guys drew billions of dollars collectively. Mm-hmm. And they do the least stuff, but you give them the mic, you can't wait to hear what they say. And when they have a match, the way they do their match, you're invested in what they do because they're slowing down and they're allowing you to, to digest it, and they're telling a story and they're selling. And, those are all important parts of the match that matter, but they all have character. And what really gets you fans is people connecting to you. Like, yeah, you can do cool moves and people go, oh, that guy's got a cool move. But, you know, if you're Matt Riddle and you're like, bro, let's go blaze one, bro. Like, oh, I like that guy, you know, your character. You know, Riddle doesn't have to do a lot because people love his character. He's really good and he can do stuff. So, you know, I was just telling Kevin Knight the other day, you know, he asked me, what advice could you give me right now? You know, I said, look, man, you're dope. Like, you know, you still need to, you know, learn a few things in terms of showmanship for television. Like, you know, your wrestling ability and your athleticism are unquestionable. But you want my advice? Promo. Talk in the shower, talk in the car. Like, people should think you're a madman because you're driving along in the car having a whole raging argument with somebody. And people are like, damn, what's the matter with that guy? You're cutting a promo. Promo, because that's where you're going to make your money. If you're a guy that can work phenomenally and you can talk, well, now you're talking about drawing money.
Checks are coming in. You know what? This is fantastic, man. I do want to shift gears while I got you here because you and I have had text exchanges, again, for years now, back and forth. And usually it's me bugging you about something, just saying, like, I like this or like that or whatever. But you've also reached out over the years and, you know, sent me a lot of your music, which is really cool. I do want to talk about this theme that, did you ever think you would be a guy that had a sing-along theme in wrestling? But you are now. You're we're in the sing-along era. But when it comes to stuff outside of the ring, you have a litany of hobbies. I remember when you were doing your podcast, I learned more about Mad Max from you than I think I ever knew in my life. But what are things that keep you going outside the ring?
Well, it's funny you should mention that because I keep postponing, but the VIP Lounge podcast is coming back. Unfortunately, Greeny won't be my co-host because he's got other contractual obligations, but I'm working on a new co-host and I'm putting everything in place. So I'm hoping that by next month, at least, the VIP Lounge podcast will be back. And that podcast is, as I used to brand it, the wrestling podcast, not about wrestling. Because, you know, as you said, we talk about movies and video games and pop culture and music. And, yeah, we get some wrestle talk in there. But it was more just a conversation, you know, about things that were cool. And I want to bring that back. But I'm also working on a YouTube show called Marking Out with MVP and Dwayne Swayze. And Dwayne Swayze is my musical partner, my writing partner, and we've put out music together and performed together. But a lot of the time when we're chilling in the studio in between takes or working on stuff or hanging out, it always come up, hey, P, let me ask you about that pay-per-view one time when you were, you know. So the premise is, if your best friend was a pro wrestler and you could ask any question you want, what would you ask? So each episode, we try to get 2 to 3 questions where I'll answer his question and I'll, give a little behind the scenes or some contextual information. And so far, we haven't dropped it yet. And again, I want to drop it maybe a week or two before or after the podcast. So we're looking at maybe next month, a start time. But it actually looks really cool. We're just, sipping some bourbon and talking about wrestling. And next month, if all goes well, keep an eye out for Marking Out with MVP and Dwayne Swayze and the return of the VIP Lounge podcast. Besides that, I'm a dad. My son is 10. He's awesome. He's such a little boy. Like he wants to wrestle. He wants to be a pro soccer player. I take him to jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and he's good at that. He doesn't want to play video games like he does sometimes, but Daddy, can I go outside and play? Daddy, can I go to the park? Like, as a dad, I couldn't be happier, with my son because he's such a little boy,
Yeah.
I still do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I don't compete as much as I used to. I haven't competed in a while, actually, but, that's still something that's important to me. And music, man, I'm still constantly going to concerts, live shows. I love music, my vinyl. So, I keep my sanity.
I didn't realize you were such a Steely Dan fan until I started tracking your social a bit too, man. I was like, man, this guy is all about Steely Dan.
I love the Dan, brother. I've seen him 11 times live.
Wow.
Yeah, love Steely Dan. I've flown to other states to go see Steely Dan I'm a huge fan of Steely Dan. I tell people all the time, I'm probably the biggest Steely Dan fan you know.
You got a favorite song? Is it easy to pick a favorite song, or is
No. Yeah, I can't pick a favorite. I got a whole bunch of favorites, but one I posted one time their song "Glamour Profession." You know, I said whenever I walk into a room, this is the song that's playing in my head. This is the music that's playing when I walk into a room. Glamour Profession.
Well, hey man, you know where you're working now. I mean, your theme is sweet, but you do that last farewell. You know, maybe that's You talk to TK about getting the rights for that one.
Let me say this real quick for the Hurt Syndicate theme song. Shout out to my good friends Smoke DZA and West Side Gun, who are both well known in the world of hip hop, and they got to be them and Wale got to be the biggest wrestling fans in the world of rap that I know of. Like, they're at all the shows, front row seats, and those cost. Like West Side Gun used to spend 6 figures a year on wrestling tickets because he doesn't want anything free. He'll buy his own tickets, and he's always right there, front row, hard cam side with $1 million worth of jewelry on. But they and I mean that literally. But Smoke DZA and Gunn are good friends of mine, and I told them, hey man, we're getting the team back together. We're going to AEW, and when we were at WWE, they made a song called "The Hurt Business," and then we spoke, and I came out on the Hurt Business remix. And this time around, I said, hey, look, man, that we gotta get together to make a theme song for the squad. So Smoke DZA got with Cartoon Beats, and we collaborated to kind of executive produce over, Cartoon's beat that he produced for us, because I knew I wanted a very specific sound. And then once we got the sound that I was looking for, West Side Gun got in the booth and came up with the now iconic hook. Hey, yo, we heard people. And Smoke DZA dropped his verse. Then they sent it to me, and I put my verse on it. And it was funny because when I first let Shelton hear it, Shelton's, he's not immersed in hip hop. He's a music guy, but he wasn't as familiar with Griselda Records and West Side Gun. So he goes, I don't know about this one, man. That guy's voice sounds kind of weird, and they just keep saying we hurt people over and over. I said, look, trust me, dude. Like, West Side Gun is one of the hottest dudes out now. Trust me. And he goes, no, you're the music guy. I trust you, but I just, and now we got the hottest theme song in pro wrestling. We walk out and everybody, dude, on indie shows when I come out, people are saying we hurt people. I see people in the grocery store like, yo, MVP, what's up? We hurt people, yo. So it's very flattering to have an iconic theme song like that, the sing-along wrestling theme song that everybody loves.
Dude, it was still relatively new when you had that Bloodsport match, and people were already singing along to it. Like, that was really cool. Well, I'm really happy for you, man. When we did our first interview years and years and years ago, we told the story about, the upbringing and the time in prison and turning things around. I'll never forget one of the things you said is that when I was growing up, people used to cross the street to get away from me. Now they bring their kids up to meet me. You're talking. The reason I bring that up now is because, like you said, you're a dad, and that's the other thing that you and I will talk about a little bit, because I really admire how much your little guy means to you, and how much you show him off. Even when quoting Aqua Teen Hunger Force, which I saw that and I laughed so hard. And if you don't know, you got to go to.
You see how I laughed when he walked up to me in the store with that hat on and said, I'm going to cut off your bleep. It's like, then as soon as I was like, my eyes welled up with tears. I laughed so hard. He loves Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Yeah. I was not prepared for him to walk up to me with that hat and do that. Wongberger, you're a madman.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, again, you need to go to MVP's social. If you're not following, I don't know why you wouldn't be following him if you're listening to this, but go look that up because it is hilarious. But I gotta say, I'm also
the 305 MVP.
Yep, I'm representing from a little.
Yo, that's the flashback, right? I wish I still had one of those shirts. They're all gone. They don't exist anymore.
The funny thing is that I even have, I think I still have it. It might have got lost in one of the moves here because there's been a couple, but I have the red one with the big MVP, the white.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure to get to follow along in your journey and talk about that. But when it comes to you and your career and your family and your life and everything, would you say you're probably, and I don't mean this as a negative, but would you say maybe you're exceeding your own expectations?
Oh, man. Initially, because, an ex-con who came from the impoverished nether regions of Opelika, which is a crime-ridden, below the poverty level city, just outside of the city of Miami. I should be dead by all accounts. I got guys that I grew up with that didn't make it. So when I got out of prison, my expectations as a young man, before I started wrestling, man, I just wanted to be able to stay out of prison, get a job, and be a part of society again. But once I got into wrestling, I had goals. And as I started to make those goals become a reality, there were expectations that I put on myself that I have achieved. So initially, I could say, yes, I've exceeded my expectations. But once I realized that my expectations were achievable, that they were real, that they were tangible, that I really could do it, then no longer did I feel that I was exceeding my expectations, because I expected, once I saw that it was real, to be a wrestling star, to be able to travel the globe and make a living in professional wrestling, and to be able to do the things that I've been doing. So if I've met my expectations, and in some cases I've exceeded them, and in other areas I'm still working to achieve them. But I think most importantly, I will say, in terms of exceeding expectations, I didn't think that I would have a 20-year career in professional wrestling. From the time I started to still be here all these years later and still be relevant, working on television, on top. I realize how fortunate I am, because most people don't have a career that spans 2 decades. And even though all of it wasn't, on US TV or on television, I think the average WWE career is like the NFL, like 3.5 years or something. And I use The Miz as an example because he's somebody you've seen on TV for 20 years. But then you don't think about, and I use the example Deuce and Domino. They were on TV just for a little while. They were tag team champions. They were somebody. They were on TV. I don't know what they're doing now. I don't really hear about them. I don't really see them doing anything. I hope they're both healthy and doing great and doing well. And I just use them as an example that everybody doesn't get to have a 20-year career. And the fact that from the time I signed a contract with WWE, which was in 2005, signed in 05, called up in 06. I have not had a job outside of the professional wrestling industry. And I realize how fortunate I am to have that, and to know that at this point, there's no end in sight, because when I retire from wrestling, I lucked up into this manager thing. It wasn't planned. It just kind of happened. And here I am with this whole new chapter of my career, being a manager. So, when I retire from being an in-ring guy, and Bobby and Shelton decide to retire, and the Hurt Syndicate closed the shop, potentially I'm still around to be a mouthpiece for some other young talent, to help teach them and guide their careers and help blow them up. So conceivably, I could do this for another 10 or 15 years,
You know what, man? I'm looking forward to it. I think a lot of people are. And I'm not saying that to blow smoke. I think that the communications we've had over the years, I'm not gonna tell you things just because you're famous and you're the wrestler friend. It's honestly like, dude, a lot of the stuff you managed to pull off, and I'll go ahead and say it. I know other people have said it to you before, but I'm going to say it anyways. You guys saved the pandemic era for WWE, and the fact that that didn't go as recognized as it should have. Now it is in a different place. And honestly, again, not blowing smoke, but you're one of my things I look forward to watching on Dynamite.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much.
At least I know I'm getting something interesting. I'm confused right now with this whole MJF thing, but I think I'm supposed to be confused. So I'm just going to let it play and see what happens here. But
well, you know what? See, that's the thing. I read on, when my social media feed and Twitter and or Blue Sky or whatever people will hit me with comments, or I'll just scroll through and see people dragging an episode of television. This doesn't make any sense. That was dumb. It didn't. Well, if you let a few more weeks of TV play out, it will all make sense. Just sit back and watch. Stop being a damn critic. Just sit back and enjoy the show. Let the storylines play out. Let's see where things go. You're not the director. If you were, then you wouldn't be working at the auto shop or whatever. Just relax and enjoy the show. It's like the people that sit in the movie theater and go, oh, the director should have used a different cut on this scene. And, man, shut up and enjoy the movie. Let it play. Now, if the storyline plays out and then, it doesn't have the right payoff or what, okay, you can critique whatever you want whenever you want. You're a fan. You could do that.
Yep.
But just sit back and let the stories play out. Stop trying to predict. Stop trying to, or say, well, they should have done this. Oh, really? What are your credentials, to say what somebody should have done, but anyway, that's
fair.
Shaking my fist at the clouds, angry rant.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's why I rebranded the podcast feed as Celebrate Wrestling. We try and find the stuff to look forward to rather than ragging on what doesn't make sense to us. I hate that phrase. It doesn't make sense. So just let it happen. And if the payoff sucks,
and to be fair, oftentimes there's a lot that makes zero sense.
Oh yeah.
To be fair, I'm not, discounting people's, criticism when it's valid, but a lot of the time the criticism comes before there's a chance to actually digest what's happening and go, oh, okay, all right, I see what's going on here, all right.
Dude, we're running out of time here, unfortunately, but please say we can do this again down the line because it's so great to catch up with you. I'm as a fan, as a guy that knows you a little bit, I'm so proud to see what you're doing. I think you're representing, forgive this term, but your generation of wrestling very, very well. I think
that's a compliment. There's no forgiveness necessary. That's a compliment. I'm very flattered by that, and I'm happy, honored, and privileged to still be here. So, and yeah, man, you got my number. You got access to me.
MVP, thank you so much.
The pleasure was all yours.
It really was, yeah. My thanks to my friend MVP for being a part of episode 100. This supersized episode in podcast form. Radio listeners not getting this much content. And we're not done yet. I want to go from MVP to Mike Sempervive. He's part of the Wrestling News, the Arcadian Vanguard Wrestling Network. He's got the Mid-Atlantic pod as well, and just a great guy I've come to talk to over the years. And for those that wonder maybe why we do what we do, this is the conversation I wanted to have with Mike, talking about just being involved in wrestling media, posting shows like this, and honestly just catching up with a guy who loves this stuff as much as most of us do. As we roll on with McGuire on Wrestling, episode 100, another special guest joining us. Good guy, great guy as a matter of fact. Always happy to step in, and one of the foremost minds when it comes to classic wrestling. One of the names I lean on when it comes to staying up to date with the current headlines, and just an all-around wonderfully bearded gentleman. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Sempervive is here.
Mike, from one Mike to another, God, you're a fantastic liar. And the check will clear very soon for all those nice things you said about me. Well, obviously, you have not been listening to Brian Alvarez.
Again, that sweet Sempervive money coming in. I can't wait.
That's why I'm doing this thing. That's what keeps me in professional wrestling. And the love of it is the cash, because I love that even more.
What a brilliant segue into what we're going to talk about. For you, Mike, I have a feeling that a lot of it's the same here, but what is someone who covers this business and even does a diligent daily update on it keeps you going and keeps you motivated?
pro wrestling has always been there for me. In the hardest times of my life, when I was a little kid, I was the kid that grew up a wrestling fan, a sports fan, a big sports fan. And to have wrestling there in all the trials and tribulations, and when you felt like you were alone, I had my fandom of this thing that would come on and you could escape with it for an hour, 2 hours in my area on Saturdays, literally all day long, and almost all day on Sunday, literally every single day of the week. It was always there, and it was always a great escape. And I read the wrestling magazines. When the newsletters came along, I looked at them and said, nah, it's a little bit too much for me. I like my after magazines. I like what this is. I don't want to be too deep into it. And with how things have evolved, boy, am I happy that I had that. I had the last era of territories that were starting to die and go away, and the nationalization of wrestling and all this, all the magazines and all that stuff where you could argue with your friend who loved the WWF of why Mr. Perfect was so much better than an Arn Anderson or something like that. But then, we would stop saying, oh, yeah, whatever. Man, your guy sucks, whatever. All right, let's go play basketball or something. Instead of let's fight here online. And then I'm going to take your opinion about that professional wrestler, and that must mean you're a communist. And then it just kind of goes from there. And, my kid is 17 years old. He grew up in this, and now he's not a wrestling fan at all, but he's had to grow up with being online, with everything always being out there and having everything seeming to be, conflict all the time. So, this is just the evolution of things, I guess, in the way that things have gone. But boy, am I happy I had wrestling when it was still, I don't want to say that fandom was a little bit simpler. I'll just put it like that. And I've been able to carry that with me. And now doing news I work 7 days a week doing something with professional wrestling several times a day in most cases. I try to shut it all out. I'm not online a lot anymore. I have eschewed all of that sort of stuff because I'm too old for this. And it takes away. And the little bit of time that I have where I'm not hardcore driven on talking about news and things that are taking place, I want to enjoy my wrestling. And that's why I started the Mid-Atlantic Championship podcast. And that's why I started the Mid-Atlantic Championship podcast Patreon. And it's one of the reasons that I like this show. And I think it's one of the reasons that your show is successful, because it is not that all of the time. And there is a celebratory feel. There still is a vibe sewed into this show and what you do that is about being a fan and just actually, enjoying what you're watching and not having to pick apart every little last detail of it.
And fans that come and go will automatically criticize, for example, for having Dave Meltzer on the show, because they're sucked into that tribalism. And I always say, well, if you listen to Dave on my show, you're getting a different Dave, because even when we talk about the current events, we don't get into the gross, nitty-gritty, backstage rumory stuff. We try and take it from, this is what it is, this is what we think, and that's it. And thank you for saying that, because that was kind of the whole reason behind Celebrate Wrestling becoming the umbrella for all this, was that now we can really define what our stance is. We don't always like everything. We will, bitch and complain and surmise like everybody else, but we'll always find a reason for it. And I think that that's probably the biggest change in wrestling fandom. And maybe you agree with this or not, that today's crowd, and it's not an indictment of them, they've just been kind of trained to be this way, there's a lot less patience.
Big time. And there's a lot of romanticization of the past, too. I mean, when the young kids talk about the olds, it's like, because look, they're missing a punch by, 10 feet. Look at that Orange Cassidy punch. And then you go back and you watch some of these things. It's not even close with the stomp on the mat and all that. It's wrestling.
Yeah.
And maybe you shouldn't overanalyze it so much as a fan. And maybe you shouldn't feed into it so much, because it's going to take away. And I know that's how people watch wrestling now. It was a simulated sport when we were coming up. And there were still aspects of that where now, no, I mean, it's kind of like a movie. And because Lucha Underground, I think that's one of those things I can see WWE bringing back now. And that's what it is. And now it's art. And now I wasn't into the comic book scene, and I'm not into movies and stuff like that, but they got their fandoms and that's what they do. And I think people just have to look at it and go, I'm going to take this ride sometimes and just let it see where it takes you. And if it sucks at the end, then call it out. If you think there's some things they should have done, of course, that's everything. But does everything have to be posted online? And if so, does everything have to be read and consumed online that then you have to respond to? And I think that once people break out of that cycle, and I know it's incredibly hard the churn of it, because social media and how we act about sports and fandom and literally everything, from the simplest things all the way up to politics. Once you kind of get out of that, I think people would be probably a lot happier with what they're watching and being more willing to enjoy taking the ride if they didn't have to deal with, so much pushback.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because, again, this show wouldn't exist without those people that want to overanalyze everything as well. And I welcome that. I love the thought. Like our Facebook page, the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page, again, it's something where you can go there and you can have a discourse. The only thing we don't tolerate is making fun of other people for their opinions, right? And I will kick people out for that. And the funny thing is now, like you said, there's people that are just raised in that generation. That's the guttural reflex for them. The instinct is to just attack. And I think we see that enough in our world, in our politics now, in everything, where it's like bad stand-up comedy. You know what I mean? Where if you think that you're a really good insult comic, but you're really just insulting people, that's kind of what it feels like. So, dude, I appreciate you so much. And I guess just to put a cap on this thing, again, going back to the original question, being patient and being willing to put up with some of the negativity out there, and that, what makes you want to get up and do the wrestling news every day today? You talked about growing up and it was always there for you, but today, what makes you want to talk about the headlines and talk with your pal Mike in Canada here and things like that about wrestling?
Because there's a Mike sitting somewhere, like me, who likes this stuff and likes to escape into it, and just to try to prove that, you can talk about just the headlines of the day and what happened on the show and that sort of thing. And, just make it like it. And even on Wrestling Observer Live, where we do have to get into a lot more of that stuff for sure, Brian always tries to take it light, and for a good reason, because it should be an hour break. And we're talking about wrestling. We're talking about something that you like, who's still in the incredible minority of people on this planet who love professional wrestling on national radio. We're giving you a chance to do this, and we're going to have some fun with it, to give you a break from your outside life. And I'm in a position where now I can provide that for people. I always wanted to maybe do something with wrestling and do something with radio. Well, now I get to combine those two things and prove to a kid that's sitting there who is, sad about his life at 12, 13 years old, 14 years old, that guess what? You can do this. Try to do it in a more professional way and go to school and stuff. But you know what? You can actually achieve something in something that you love so much and give something back. And it's always been there for me. So I want to be able to let it continue and to give it to people without being a snarky bastard or anything like that, and just loving the history. And that's the other thing too, is being a big history fan in all aspects. The wrestling history is incredibly interesting too. And there's so much of it that has not even been scratched yet, that people are digging into, that I love being a part of that as well too.
He is Mike Sempervive. You can catch him, the Mid-Atlantic Podcast. You can catch him through Wrestling Observer Live. You can catch him at the Wrestling News through the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast. Where else, Mike?
I'm Mike Big Audio Nightmare, which you can find at f4wonline.com, on the Black Wrestling Patreon. Those guys over there, Bulls in a China Shop, which is a complete non-wrestling show, and boy, is it a mess. But that's, to be expected. Hey, I love to talk, can you tell? And I love to write, too. So definitely patreon.com/Mid-Atlantic Podcast. If you love wrestling, if you love history, if you love a good story, that's a great place for you. I got the match of the day every single day. It's updated. I got a bunch of stuff over there, exclusive podcasts, videos, a Google Drive, and all that sort of stuff. So, again, it's one of those places. It's a little small thing. Got a little community over there, but it is people that love wrestling, love its history, and don't need all that other nonsense.
Thanks for being part of the 100th, buddy.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
Well, we've heard Dave Meltzer's picks as to who's going to take what when it comes to WrestleMania, but now it's time for our Celebrate Wrestling Roundtable. We're only missing one guy here, and wouldn't you know it's because he has to work, but Andy Evans not joining us. However, Stephen Bennett from the UK is here. Every time I see you on your Zoom window, I want to call you Demetrios, but Mitch Honsius is here. Dimitri Karolis and Joe Aguinaldo. Hello, everybody.
Howdy.
Hello.
All right, the WrestleMania card is announced. We know what matches are happening where, and I know a lot of you have talked about this on your various shows, but we'll start with Joe. How are you feeling about the build going into Mania?
You know what? I am going to give acknowledgement to my GWO tribal chiefs, Dimitri and Mitch. Mitch specifically on the last ACT said exactly what I'm thinking about WrestleMania, that there's nothing really that is making me want to stay. I think when you get past all of the hype, all of the build, there's really about 1.5 matches that I'm interested in. Now, that said, it'll probably be a pretty awesome show, but I've just not been interested, since Elimination Chamber. My interest level has kept going down during this build.
Historically, shows that fans have felt this way going into usually come out feeling great. Dimitri, would you agree or disagree?
You know what? I'm going to agree for the most part, and I'm going to agree with this one here because I still feel that WWE has done a really good job of when it's all said and done, we look back and say shame on us. So I'm still waiting for that element. I have no reason to think otherwise, so I'm just going to go with it. Otherwise, yes. And by the way, Joe, we acknowledge you as well. We acknowledge the GW Joe, the
It's
one
true.
and only. We have to
Always.
And we could spend a lot of minutes on that as well, preferably. But moving on.
All right, Mitch Honsius. Joe kind of spoke for you there a little bit, but we did hear your thoughts on the alternate commentary table. Are you hoping for the best, or are you kind of checked out at this point?
I think Dimitri would probably tell you that I always try to be pessimistic, but I'm actually the opposite. I've changed, Mike. I've changed my ways. I agree with everything what I said yesterday. They're not getting me hyped up for this, but I've been fooled before, so I'd be silly to say that they're not going to have a good show. I'm cheering for them to have the best show. I want the best. I want them to beat Elimination Chamber. Right now, best pay-per-view, PLE, whatever you want to call it these days of the year, I need them to beat it. I mean, are you really going to have Elimination Chamber as your best one of the year? You can't have that. It's WrestleMania, baby.
Okay, Stephen Bennett, who is one of the few people on Earth, according to Legends and Champions, that considers WrestleMania 2000 a great and entertaining show.
Okay, this was controversial. As I said to Andy, and I said on the show, I said I enjoyed it. I loved it. I didn't say it was a good show, but we'll
all right.
that one there. I look at it different. I'm always pumped for Mania regardless, and then I always find myself watching, and then I'm either sitting there thinking, geez, this is really boring and this is not living up to any expectations, or I'm like, oh, this is actually a great Mania. I can't call it because I expect there to be a few surprises still. I think some of the matches which we're kind of thinking they're just throwing that together just as filler, I think may actually end up standing out performance-wise. But I'm always excited for Mania, but I do see everyone else's point. It has been built very sort of lackluster, in my opinion.
We have a lot of matches to get through and very little time to do it. So, gentlemen, we're going to shift gears right into the card here. We're going to start off with WrestleMania Saturday. And show of hands, and then I'll go through each person here. But show of hands, Gunther versus Jey Uso. Who thinks Gunther has it? No. Oh, Joe says Gunther. Why?
Just because I think everyone's going to pick Jay, so I'm going to be a different guy.
All right, fair enough, just for the sake of rebelling. Dimitri, what do you think here? Why do you say Jey Uso?
I think that they are right. Okay, we talked about this on the ACT. It's going to be a bit of a spoiler of how I think the main event's going to go. They're starved for true baby faces. They're starved for true hype people. And I think Jey Uso, like they've been trying to build him up and they've been force feeding him being the main event, Jey Uso, for the longest time. It has to happen. I think they want it to happen because I think they got plans for a little something else going on in the El Main Evento, if you will.
All right, Mitch, your thoughts. Why do you say Jey Uso?
I'm just going to say simply because, to Dimitri's point, they got something planned. Gunther's done everything so far that they've asked him to do. It's time to move him to that next level. He's going up a level. Even though he's losing the belt, he's somehow moving up a level on Jey Uso.
Stefan, you also said Jey Uso. Why?
Yeah, I agree again that the guys, I think there is something more planned. And also from the perspective of having Jey as a shock winner, everything they've kind of done with him, it would just be a complete waste of time not to put that belt on him. And it makes perfect sense to put that on Jey, build him up some more, and put Gunther up where he belongs as a full-on main eventer on the next level.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and actually go with Joe here, and I'm going to say Gunther. I think the only thing you can do to make Jey Uso even bigger is make him fight longer. I think that the struggle needs to be a little more real for him, and I don't know if we're there yet. I think that the promo all in black last week was good, but I'd still like to see more suffrage. And you could say, well, he's already lost a couple times. I get that, but I'm probably wrong. My predictions are always wrong. Women's championship match, Tiffany Stratton against Charlotte Flair. Who's got Charlotte? Show of hands. Mitch and Dimitri. Okay, Mitch, you first.
Listen, they didn't bring her back just to not bring her. You know what? I hate to say it, that promo from last week spoke to me even more so than I ever thought. Long story short, she's still a little too young, and she showed her rookie. It's like hockey, Mike. They gave her the C too early. You got to take it off. She'll get it again later on in her life. You got to give it to Charlotte. You got to give it back to Charlotte.
I don't know. Some people say that Charlotte was the one that got shook up in that one. But Dimitri, what do you think?
I do think she got shook up from that one in terms of she wasn't expecting so much hate from the crowd. And she's like, what the heck is going on? But I'm with my boy Mitch here. I think Tiffany went a little off tilt because behind the scenes, they know what we all know. They brought her back for the Rumble. They made her win it. They're putting it on her, and she doesn't like it. And stuff got real, and stuff got real a little too fast. Give me a little Charlotte Flair, and give me a little woo! Woo!
Stephen Bennett says it's Tiffy time. Why?
I think for me, I think Tiffy is going to take it, but I think she's going to lose it fairly soon after. I think maybe at the next PLE. It could also happen on SmackDown. I just feel that they're trying to make her look too much of an underdog. And I think if Charlotte goes in the dominator, I actually think it hurts Tiffany a little bit with the push that they're trying to make with her at the moment. I just think if they take it off her and put it on Charlotte already, then I think that hurts Tiffany a little bit. So I'm going to go with Tiffy to come out on top, but drop it fairly soon after.
And Joe Aguinaldo, are you in agreement with Stefan, or do you have different reasons why you're picking Stratton?
To be honest with you, I wasn't sure where to go with this. I'm just picking Tiffany because she just got the belt. But I could certainly see, Charlotte winning it. I do like the idea of like Charlotte winning it, as taking the C off of Tiffany, so to speak, and then making her earn it, say at a SummerSlam or something like that. But again, just off the top of my head, just based on what I'm seeing, though, I don't see Tiffany losing it, but wouldn't be shocked if that happened, especially to Charlotte.
All right, I'm going to make a chart of all our picks, including Dave Meltzer as well, coming up. So it'll be on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page for this, by the way. The U.S. Championship is also going to be defended on WrestleMania Saturday. LA Knight defending his title against the undefeated Jacob Fatu. Show of hands, who has LA Knight ending Jacob Fatu's streak? That's what wait a minute.
You're just doing it. He just wants to talk, Mike. Don't let him talk.
Dimitri's going for it. Dimitri, you have 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds. Go.
There is only one way, and the Greeks mean one way that you can properly set up Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa in the ultimate screw job of screw jobs. It's going to happen, at WrestleMania.
You think Solo is going to cost Jacob the match?
Done.
All right. Anybody else want to agree with that? Anybody else want to agree with that?
Actually, Yeah, I'm going to go. He has actually just swayed me to go with that. I thought it could, but now the way he's just explained now, I'm actually going with that. I think he's nailed that on.
Steph and I got some oceanfront property in Arizona for you to buy in on then. You know what? Joe, Mitch, I'm going to just skip because I think we're all of the same mind here that the undefeated streak continues here. So let's just keep going in the interest of time here. Oh, boy. Mitch and Dimitri, behave yourselves. El Grande Americano versus Rey Mysterio. Who's got El Grande Americano? Everybody. All right. So, Mitch, let's start with you, pal, real quick.
Listen, you can't. I've talked about this many times about many reasons. The heater. El Grande is too hot right now. You can't take him off this heater. I'm sorry. You just got to go with El Grande.
Joe.
100% agree, and it's Rey Mysterio. Loss won't hurt him.
Okay. Dimitri?
You said to be nice and to keep it clean. I will defer to Stefan and agree with Mitch.
Okay. Stefan.
I think it's a full house exactly for those reasons. And yeah, I don't see Ray needing to pick up any wins.
Well, Meltzer made the great suggestion that this continues on to be a mask versus mask match coming up later on. I said SummerSlam. Then, of course, obviously, Grande Americano would get revealed. I'm all for that. So, yeah, you know what? Across the board here, we're all picking El Grande Americano for the win. The Raw Tag Team titles, which have been a bit of an afterthought, but the New Day challenging the War Raiders. New Day have to get this one. That's my thought. Who's got New Day? Everybody except Dimitri. Well, Dimitri's ho-humming. What do you say, pal?
I kind of don't care.
Like, okay, but you got to pick one. You got to pick one.
War Raiders, because why not? There, I'll be different.
Does anybody have any compelling things to say about this match? All right, let's move on.
I just hope it headlines. I want this to finish off WrestleMania Saturday night. Right? Forget CM Punk and all that. This should end Saturday night. That's it.
The War Raiders have to finish their story.
Oh, God.
Yes.
All right, two more for WrestleMania Saturday. Naomi versus Jade Cargill. Who's got Jade? No hands go up for Jade. Everybody's thinking Naomi. Okay, let's start with Stefan this time. Why?
I think Naomi's in for a big push. I actually like the segments that she's been doing where she looks very unhinged. I think it actually really suits her character. To be fair, Jade, the fact she's only been in WWE for just over a year, I still don't think it's going to hurt. She's a big star in the making still. I still think they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with her, but I think this is set up a Naomi win to take her maybe into the women's championship picture. But I expect this rivalry to go on for a little bit longer than just WrestleMania.
How about that promo with the hair decoration that looked like razor blades in her hair? That was something else. Okay, Dimitri.
I don't think that you continuously squash someone week after week, unless you're planning on letting them go, to not have something for them. I think there's something for Naomi here for that reason. It's just the Cargill's too easy to me for just to walk in and to win.
All right, Joe, why are you picking Naomi?
To be honest with you, I didn't even remember this match till you brought it up, and I'm just picking Naomi because I'm not really into Jade. So,
all right. Wow, the Dan Lavransky coming out in Joe Aguinaldo today. And Mitch Honzius, why do you have Naomi over Jade?
You know what? I'm with Stefan on this one. Loving what they're doing with Naomi. She needed to be on her own. She doesn't look like a glow stick anymore. Let's go, Naomi. Love it.
All right, I'm going to be the solo standout here. I think she's going to win the match, but I think Naomi's going to cream her afterwards. I think it's going to be just a total beatdown to keep the feud going. But we move forward now to the main event of WrestleMania Saturday. Joe, behave. Everybody else, CM Punk versus Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman to be in the corner of CM Punk. And the reason why I say Joe, behave is because Joe Aguinaldo talking about CM Punk is kind of reminiscent of Bret Hart talking about Bill Goldberg. So let's go ahead here. Who has got Punk? Wow. Joe Aguinaldo has CM Punk, and so does Dimitri Karolis. So, Joe, go ahead.
Okay. So, CM Punk makes sense if they're going to, quote unquote, finish his WrestleMania main event story.
Sure.
It makes sense.
Sure.
However, I will also say the other person that I would pick, just because of the potential storyline with Paul Heyman is Seth Rollins.
Okay, Dimitri, you've got Punk. Why?
Yeah, I was teetering between those two. Is it going to be Seth? Is it going to be Punk? And I actually think that Punk has way more people to continue the storyline with and makes the most sense as the clear-cut winner because you can take the other two now and really get them going for a long time. That's a lot of unfinished business. But I just think Punk is I think they're going to do something nice for him on this one, and it's a nice welcome home present.
Stephen Bennett and Mitch Honsius, do either of you have Seth Rollins as your winner? They both do. All right, so nobody here's got Romans. Stefan, let's start with you. Why Seth Rollins?
My original pick was CM Punk until this week when Seth said to Paul Heyman, "No, you owe me a favor." I've got that for me's kind of put me more in the Seth's gonna win thought than CM Punk. Why, I don't know. I just think there's something interesting. I think most people are probably expecting Roman or Punk to win, and I think it might be a little surprise for Seth. And to be fair, I always said Seth was the unsung hero of WrestleMania last year. Everything he did for Cody and all that. I think this, and the injuries that he worked through, I think this could be a nice reward for him to have him go over in the big main event.
Mitch.
Literally, Stefan, are you in my notes? That's exactly what I was going to say. Well said, sir. Mike, there it is. Seth Rollins for the win, my friend. And maybe, may I just throw in Brock Lesnar? Maybe. I'm just saying. I don't know why. I'm just saying it.
All right.
For the record, Joe and I were going to originally say that, but we knew that you two were going to say that, so then we switched to not say that. Just want to throw that out there.
You knew nothing.
You know what, guys?
Keep your mouth shut, just.
I'm going to go with the Rollins as well, even though I'm a huge Punk fan in this whole thing. Dave and I were talking about it earlier. I think there's an interesting potential for Heyman to have to turn on both Roman and Punk. So maybe that's the favor. Maybe there's something else. I don't know. But for some reason, and for all the reasons you guys have mentioned, I actually think Rollins is going to take it, although I would prefer it be Punk. I don't think Punk is afraid to go out looking at the lights on this one. He's in that part of his career.
I just want to add, as you was talking about that,
sure.
The main reason why it's made me switch to Seth with the whole favor thing is when you look back, Heyman's realized how both Roman and Punk have both abandoned him and left him alone, both when he's been by their side. And I think that might play a part in that. He might have actually come to realize, well, hold on, actually screw both these guys. They've both abandoned me when I've been there for them and helped them elevate their careers. So I think that might be another reason why.
All right, Stefan making it personal. Okay, so that is our WrestleMania Saturday picks. Let's move to Sunday here. Again, Logan Paul versus AJ Styles is set to be one of the matches there. Who's got Logan in this one? I think Joe's the only one that doesn't actually in this whole thing. So, Joe, let's start with you. Why do you think Logan Paul doesn't win?
Again, it was one of those matches where I kind of thought, oh, this is happening. So I really haven't put much thought into it. Okay. And since all of you guys picked Logan Paul anyways, I'll stick with AJ Styles.
Joe just wanted to be different. All right. You know what? I want to just keep going here because we are running a little short on time. And this is going to be a big one that I think a lot of people are going to have different answers for. The Intercontinental Championship, Braun Breaker versus Penta versus Dominic Mysterio versus Finn Balor. Why should Dominic Mysterio be the Intercontinental Champion when he faces Goldberg in Goldberg's final match? #Domberg, #GoldDom.
That's awesome.
Okay, so real quick, who's got Braun retaining? Show of hands. Okay, Mitch, start with you.
Yeah, I just think he's still, you know what, he's done great with the belt. There's no reason to take him off the belt. Penta's hot on his own. And with all due respect to Dom, I want Dom so bad. If he won, I'd be excited about it. But truthfully, going down the line, he offers us nothing. Long story short, it's got to be the Breaker.
Joe?
Yep. You can't disagree with anything Mitch said.
Okay, who's got Penta? Anybody? Nobody's got Penta. Interesting. Dominic Mysterio. Who's with me? Wow. All right, the other two are with me as well. Stefan, why Dom Dom?
I think it's time to take him up to another level now. He's proven himself over the past year or so. I also expect Finn to go close, and I think Dom's going to actually be the reason why Finn doesn't actually win the title in this match, and I think that's going to be where then like the Judgment Day maybe start going separate ways, especially as far as Finn Balor is concerned. Sure. And I think it's time for Dom to have one of the main championships now.
And Dimitri.
Yeah, look, my brain says that Penta is going to win, in all honesty, but I want the Dom. We need the Dom. And more importantly, we need a cow skin or goat skin belt. Forget the spinner belt. I mean, I'm talking fuzzy belt all the way through. You guys, think about it. We need this. We need this.
I'm going to throw this out real quick here. The reason I'm picking Dom is for everything that you guys have just said, plus I have a feeling, and call it a crazy feeling, it could be one way or the other here. Gunther's been the rumored opponent for Goldberg. But what if, for just a second, it was Braun Breaker? Okay, think about that. Whoa. Let's move forward. Nobody's picking Finn in this one, so let's move forward here. Women's Championship 3-way, Io versus Rhea versus Bianca Belair. Who's got Rhea? No hands for Rhea. Okay, let's go to Io retaining. Anybody? Okay, we got everybody here is saying that. So, Stefan, start with you quick.
Yeah, I think it's too soon to put the title back on Rhea. I think Rhea and Bianca may actually go off into their own thing. And I think between the three of them, Io probably looks like the underdog, being the smallest, even though her ability speaks for itself. And I think it would be a brilliant surprise to see Io retain. No one would probably be expecting it, so I'm going to go Io.
I wonder if the fans would go for it. Dimitri?
Yeah, I think exactly what Stefanos is saying up there. And, at least on my screen, he's up there. I agree. And the whole buildup is them dodging her. I think there's got to be a little bit of respect to her name. And I want to see her win like really cheesy too, like a roll-up, like really classic, backside roll-up, be over, and run out of the ring.
All right, let's go to Mitch.
Yeah, I just think, truthfully, the way they disrespect her each and every week, no one's taking her serious. I just think it's all that lead up is for Io to have the belt back and
Joe.
keep it and respect it.
Go ahead. And Joe.
Hell yeah, they need to put some respect on Io's name. Plus, futu.
Little Kai and Sky throwback there for you. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to be the unpopular one here. I'm still thinking there's a Bianca heel turn coming, and that's why I'm going to pick her. But we'll move forward here. Sin City Street Fight. I've probably seen a couple of these on trips in Vegas over the years. Damian Priest, who's from the streets, taking on Drew McIntyre. Who's got Drew?
Oh, I got you.
All right, Stefan, Mitch, and Dimitri, okay? Mitch, why Drew?
It's got to be Drew. It's you know what? Look, a little while ago, we just said Dom keeps getting disrespected. It's time for Drew to start getting a little respect. The guy's taking all the big names. He's fighting everyone. It's time for Drew to have a little respect put on his name. And that eye patch, I mean, who wants to mess with a guy with an eye patch? No one is my answer. No one wants to fight a guy with an eye patch.
He just ditched the eye patch, though, so...
Damn it. We'll put it back on then.
Okay, who else had Drew? Mitch, or Stefan, you did, right?
Yeah. I go with what Mitch said. Drew's suffered massive losses consecutively on pay-per-view, so I think it's long overdue him to get a big win. And again, I don't think this rivalry is going to be done just because of Mania. It will carry on, I think, for another one, maybe two PLEs afterwards. So, but I'm down with Drew.
And Dimitri, I think you had Drew too, right?
Yeah, I do, because otherwise he's going to turn into the new Brooklyn Brawler. He's got to do something here.
I would pay to see that. I would love to see him come out with the old torn-up New York Yankees shirt, the flat hat. Okay,
why not?
Joe, why do you say Priest?
Honestly, I was just kind of waiting to see what all you guys said because I don't really care about this match. So I'm going to go with Drew. I think Drew should win this.
Okay, we don't have this match announced yet. I'm going for Priest on this one, but I think Drew's going to just use it to talk about how he got screwed again, and that works for Drew. That works for Drew. Okay, the Judgment Day of Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan defending their titles against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. Dave thinks there's going to be a Bayley heel turn, so does that influence anybody's decision? Who's got Bayley and Lyra? Oh, Joe does, strictly for defiance, correct?
Well, actually, just because I think both Bailey and Lyra are swell. But if it happens, if the heel turn happens, well, it happens. But I was gonna pick them regardless.
Okay, no disrespect to this match here, but if everybody else is kind of on the mind of Judgment Day still retaining, does anybody have anything they really want to say about this match, or can we keep going?
Okay.
All right, we're gonna keep going then, and that's because this match is not confirmed yet. However, the belief is Randy Orton versus Solo Sikoa. So, saying this happens, who's got Randy? Hands up. Mitch is okay, and Stefan reluctantly, and Dimitri, okay. And Joe sits alone, okay. So, you know what? I don't think we should spend too much time on this match only because it's not confirmed. However, I will confirm this according to, quote, sources, and I'll say a pretty reliable source. Those that were hoping for Nick Aldis versus Randy Orton, not going to be happening this time around. But nevertheless,
it's unfair, Mike. It's unfair and it's unjust. I just want to be on the record. I'm on the record. Nick Aldis deserves his story to be told as well. This is ridiculous.
Also,
for me, I'm out.
Also, I am picking Nick Aldis, even if he's not going to be in that match.
Yeah.
All right.
Screw Randy Orton.
All right. Write-in vote for Nick Aldis, apparently. But Randy Orton, going to be his 20th WrestleMania. I'm going to say he gets the win over Solo. Solo's got a lot of runway still to get some big wins back. He's had a main event scene. He can get back there over time. Last, and certainly not least, for the WWE Championship, gentlemen, Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. Show of hands, who has the American Nightmare still walking out as WWE Champion? Stefan stands alone. All right, Steph, who's now changed his name to Stefanos Benetos. The Greek is starting to seep through. All right.
Yes.
Explain yourself.
Okay, I still think, even though it's been a year, I still think it's too soon. Cody's still right now the hottest star in the company, but I'm not sold that this thing with The Rock, because The Rock's been very quiet since Cena's heel turn. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little more to this, and things are not quite what they seem. Whether it will actually turn out to be it's a double cross and Cody turns heel, I don't expect it, but I wouldn't put it beyond the realms of possibilities. I just think there's more to it than this. I don't think Cena picks up the title. I don't see it.
So for the record, everybody else here is on Team Cena. Mitch, let's start with you.
Listen, I mean, like, it's simple as this, Mike. It's just a timeline. If Cena came back to wrestling and said, I don't know when I'm going to be done, then I would say to you, Cody Rhodes will win this. However, because we only have, we're going to go into basically late April. We got, 8 more months. There's a WrestleMania. There's a Survivor Series. When would he win it? He wins it now. He loses it before the end of the year. And on top of it, it just makes more sense. And I hate Cody Rhodes. Long story short, it's John Cena for everything.
Dimitri, agree or disagree?
I agree. That's why I teased it at the beginning. They found a second babyface for the company. Jey Uso gets the belt on the one side. The Cody Rhodes drops it to the Cena. We haven't seen The Rock because The Rock's just coming back at WrestleMania, everyone, to do a little on the whole WWE universe. We're going to have a summer that is going to be the hottest summer in wrestling business, where Cody might win it back, or who knows how they play the cards. But I think if John Cena, he turned the world upside down by turning heel, and he's going to turn the world upside down by carrying the title as a heel. It works. It works.
All right. And for those listening by way of audio, as that's what this usually is, the as demonstrated by Dimitri, was the throat slashing maneuver and nothing else. Finally, Joe Aguinaldo, why do you have John Cena?
We've been calling this for a while. Got to stay true to it.
That's it?
That's it. We got to modernize that record. 17 for Cena, and let's go.
That's enough. Well, gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and side with Team Cena taking this one. I think there's a lot of heat there to carry through the summer. I think Cody would be better on a chase at this point, or maybe even somebody else. Who knows? But, gentlemen, thank you very much. The official, unofficial Celebrate Wrestling WrestleMania picks for WrestleMania 41. We will reconvene after the 9,000 hours of WrestleMania content this week, and we'll see how we did. But you know what? Make your picks at the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. We're going to have a chart having all our picks. You can post under there. And that's it, gentlemen. Thank you all very much. Happy WrestleMania.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, brother.
And look at that. Dear Lord, we are clocking in at almost 2 hours and 15 minutes. So if you've made it through this entire Super Show edition, McGuire on Wrestling 100, the podcast version, thank you for doing that. Massive thanks to MVP. Massive thanks to Dave Meltzer. And, of course, Mike Sempervive, the entire panel. And most importantly, massive thanks to you. I remember one time seeing Michael Hayes as Doc Hendricks say this line, and it stuck with me ever since. Without you, there is no us. So thank you for supporting. If you want to get one of those t-shirts on pre-order right now or support the show any other way, CelebrateWrestling.com. Hit subscribe. Tell your friends. And we'll be back after WrestleMania looking at that and a bunch more. Until then, thank you for listening and letting me do what I do. Play safe, drive safe. Abyssinia.
McGuire on Wrestling. Online and on the radio. Listen to the show Mondays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time at CKXU.com, wherever you get your podcasts, and at McGuireShow.com.